traveling from Hunter. Author, Battle Ring. Chapter 126. Servant is strong and master is weak. Aren't you tossing the vitality tree at home? Why did you come here all of a sudden? Fischer asked with great interest, looking at Ilfan's. Grandpa said that if I put my mind to that thing again, my legs would be broken, so I gave up, Yermi said with a blank expression. PFFT. Haha, break your leg? Now I have a picture of you limping in my mind. Hearing what Yerfan said, Fischer couldn't help laughing out loud. Laugh and laugh. Let me know when you've laughed enough, Yermi said lightly, and then walked to the side sofa and sat down, her hands drooping, her big black eyes staring straight at Fischer. Fischer, okay, let's stop talking nonsense, let's talk. What are you doing here looking for me? Being stared at by Ilfans, Fischer panicked, unable to continue laughing, and asked Ilfans Road. I want to know, what's up with him and Menchai? Why has the strength improved so much in just half a year? So terrifying. Don't perfuse me casually, you know my character, perfunctory me, I will always pester you. Yermi nodded expressionlessly, and then said, Fischer, with the character of Yermi, it is really possible to do this. Let's make a long story short. Kurapika and Menchai have been able to improve so much in a short period of time because they are my direct stewards and members of my faction. I have an, and that gives my men great power. I know you also want to gain great power in a short period of time, but it's impossible, because you are my family, and I won't do it. Fischer knows what Eel is a fan of this guy. Since this guy asked, then he came to him to ask for this method of quickly improving his strength, so he explained it directly and blocked his mouth in advance. Is this such an, this kind of weirdness has a price, right? Even the monster Luca needs to pay a price to get wishes from him. Ilmi said calmly with his face still unchanged. Not at all. Fischer shook his head in denial. The existence of the system is to assist oneself, which is different from that of Luca. Yalugias is an exchange of equivalent value, but the objects of exchange are different. The former gets, and the latter pays. But the system completely benefits itself and its subordinates. Once you harvest a new faction member, you can obtain abilities from the faction member, and the system will also give a reward suitable for the faction member. Really? Ilfans couldn't believe it, and looked at Kurapika. Seeing this, Kurapika shook her head slightly. Master Yermi, I don't know about this matter. All I know is that Fischer can give the benefits that suit us. Fischer, are you sure you don't need a price? Yermi nodded after hearing this, then looked at Fischer again, and asked Fischer for the second time. The only price is to become my subordinate. Mine is to help my subordinates grow up. Only by becoming my subordinates can I get this kind of benefit. Fischer opened his mouth lightly and explained again. That's fine, Fischer. I'll be your direct manager. It's a great benefit for you to give me such a big promotion. After hearing Fischer's explanation, Yermi spoke without hesitation. This made Fischer very confused and stared at him blankly. Being your subordinate, you will not order it at will, just like him and those guys. Also, after you become the head of the family in the future, I will have to obey your orders in certain matters, so it's not too much, it's just ahead of schedule. Regarding Fischer's obsession, Yerfan didn't care at all, explained lightly. Hearing Yermi's explanation, Fischer came back to his senses, and frowned. Yermi, are you serious? Seriously, I thought about it for a long time. Ilfans nodded seriously. I believe you, Ghost. I just explained it to you, and you said that you have thought about it for a long time. Lying is not as lying as you are. Actually, I already had this guess before, and the reason why I asked you is to confirm it with you. Now, you have explained it yourself, so I will make this decision. Why, don't you want to? Yerfan continued to speak. You are my family, and I don't want to impose such an extra shackle on my family relationship. Fischer replied with a complicated expression. Fischer really doesn't want such an extra relationship between family members. Their strength is improving so fast, and soon the people in the family will not be able to match. Fischer, do you want the servants of the Zoldyck family to be strong and the master to be weak? Ilmi narrowed her big round eyes slightly, and said lightly, to tell you the truth, my dad has guessed about this matter and discussed it with me. It's also Dad's intention to come to you this time. Dad said, this time it's up to me to decide on my own. My decision is to obtain the method and benefits of quickly improving your strength from you. Fischer, will you give it? Yermi's tone was still flat, but there was an aggressive feeling. Even Dad got involved. It's really troublesome. The Fischer scratched his scalp in some annoyance. People in the family are not blind, so they can guess it naturally. Yermi nodded and continued. Is the servant strong and the master weak? Indeed, it is fortunate that the human kingdom in Lake Mobius does not have too many powerful enemies for Kurapika to improve their strength. But once they enter the Dark Continent, Kurapika and the others who have the grace of God are absolutely unrestrained wild horses and cannot be restrained at all. Because there are strong people everywhere in that place, fighting against the existence there. With the assistance of the grace of God, Kurapika and their strength will definitely increase rapidly. At that time, the real servant is strong and master is weak. If you don't describe an Hui to Yermi, then this is the future. But if you describe an Hui, Yermi will become your own hand 4.6 times, adding a layer of shackles on the family level. It's really troublesome. Thinking of this, Fischer sighed melancholy. Fischer, you don't have to think that much. Based on your character, even if you become a member of your faction, you will not order members at will. Throw away that pimple in your heart. Just don't think about it. It's not a big deal. Seeing that Fischer's attitude was a little loose, the eel fans quickly tried to persuade him. Let me think about it. Okay, Ilfan. Although a little moved, Fischer did not directly agree to Ilfan because of this emotion, but replied like this. Okay, but it's best to give an answer within a week. This is the time limit that Daddy gave you, Yami said without forcing Fischer when he heard the words, and got up and left here after speaking. Chapter 127 Decision. Kurapika, who is planning for a rainy day. It's really troublesome. Standing up to the floor-to-ceiling windows, Fischer put his hands in his pockets and murmured looking out the window. Fischer, I think what Master Yami said is right. The portrayal of Inhui is just a trivial shackle. After all, you didn't treat us as servants from the bottom of your heart. Did you? So you don't have to worry about this at all. This kind of inner knot doesn't exist at all. 17. Besides, it can improve the strength of the family, so why not do it? The most important point, if only we can quickly improve our strength, your family members will never ignore it, and the two sides will definitely conflict. Looking at the troubled Fischer, Kurapika began to persuade him. This is his point of view. Although Ilmi said that servants are strong and masters are weak, Kurapika knows that Fischer never regards them as servants, but companions. So he didn't feel disgusted with Ilmi's words. He was completely in the state of hearing with his left ear and hearing with his right ear. As long as Fischer treats them the same as before, eel fans can call them whatever they want. 09 Fischer did not respond. Before eel fans did not advance, Fischer did not expect to come up in this regard. But now, as soon as Yami mentioned it, Fischer also noticed this. As Kurapika said, as members of the Zoldyck family, they will be suppressed by a group of direct housekeepers recruited in the future. How could the Zoldyck family be reconciled? There will definitely be a series of contradictions. Fischer, don't hesitate. At this time, Kurapika spoke again, still persuading. I can't help it. Let's show favor to my dad and the others. Hearing Kurapika's words again, Fischer also made a decision and sighed slightly. Speaking of which, how do you feel now? Are you going to act tonight? Immediately, Sincha asked about Kurapika's situation. The reason why I didn't go directly to Chrollo and others yesterday, but took the members of the brigade directly overnight, was just to let Kurapika take a good rest and calm down his inner emotions. It now appears that Kurapika has recovered. So Fischer wanted to ask Kurapika if he wanted to know all about it tonight. Ah, that's exactly what I mean. Kurapika nodded firmly after hearing that, and replied, okay, let's go find the house tonight. However, since Chrollo hasn't left, then he will definitely arrange something later. Be careful tonight. Fischer nodded, and then warned seriously. I see, I won't be careless. Kurapika nodded seriously. By the way, Fischer, I forgot one thing. Can I call Michi? Kurapika continued after reassuring Fischer. Michi? What? You want to kill her? Fischer was a little surprised when he heard this. No, I just wanted to test it out. I have a chain that can detect lies. I want to detect it. If Michi kills the Kuruta people, then let her continue to be Gale's experimental subject. If not, then this subject should not be a subject. Kurapika replied. You still think about Michi, you know. This guy is a member of the brigade. After listening to Kurapika's explanation, Fischer's expression was extremely strange. It was the first time he saw Kurapika like this. If it were me, even if I had this ability, thank you, I would not consider Michi. After all, they are all members of your faction now, and we will see each other often in the future. This involves my attitude towards her in the future. If possible, I still hope that there is no hatred between me and her, so that I can treat her with a normal heart. This is related to the possible actions of cooperation in the future. Kurapika took a deep breath, and then said, deceive yourself. Fischer gave him a blank look and said. Hearing this, Kurapika showed a bitter expression. Yeah, he's kidding himself. Still, he tried it first. If I don't try it, I will not be a companion with Michi in the future. Even if I am a housekeeper under the same direct control, the best way I treat her is to have nothing to do with passers-by. But if it turns out not to be, then he and Michi would make great companions. As members of the direct stewardship force, no matter how alienated they are in the future, they will act together and cooperate together. If it can only be an unrelated passerby, then he must first comfort himself in order to avoid problems in cooperation in the future. If you can become a partner, then it is necessary to deepen the relationship between each other. Acting together in the future will have better results. Whatever you want, go find Gailu yourself. She should be experimenting in her room now. Fischer shook his head and waved his hands casually. Okay, I'll go find her now. Kurapika nodded, and was about to leave here. Tell Michi it's my order and she will cooperate with you. Fischer nodded, and then stopped talking. Yeah. Nodding, Kurapika left the place. This guy, it's too worrying. He's already thinking about the future. Looking at the closed door, Fischer was a little speechless. The Kurapika guy was thinking too much to think of the future now. However, his thinking about planning for a rainy day is indeed correct. In the future, when we enter the Dark Continent, cooperation is the most basic. We are not sure about the relationship now, and if we don't take proper measures, mistakes will easily occur in future cooperation. In that place, as long as it is a small mistake, it will be magnified enough to destroy a team's fatal 573 turnovers. This guy has considered everything, right? Is it good or bad to have such a steward? I feel like I'm such a waste, Fischer murmured, because he didn't think of it before Kurapika mentioned it. Soon, the door of Fischer's room was opened again, and Kurapika's figure appeared in the room. You guys are always in a hurry. Fischer looked at the door that was slammed against the wall, and the corners of his eyes twitched slightly. Fischer, it has been established that Michi did not kill any Kairuta. Also, Michi said there was one person in Phantom Troop who wasn't involved in the killing at the time. They were only responsible for collecting the red eyes that had been opened on the corpses of the Kairuta tribe, and did not kill them. Kurapika ignored Fischer's displeasure and said loudly, "Hey, there really isn't one." Fischer was also very surprised when he heard this. He never thought about this. In his heart, Michi was also the one who did it at that time, which is why he still handed Michi over to Kurapika after he turned Michi's thinking into his subordinate. I didn't expect such a reversal to come now. What about the other one? Immediately, Shell asked curiously. A woman named Pak Noten. Hey, it's her. Chapter 128, Transaction. This is the first time we met, Fischer Zoldyck. Sitting on the broken wall of the abandoned church, Chrollo Silva said calmly, holding the thief's ultimate intent in his hand. Indeed, it's the first time we've met. Meeting in this environment, Chrollo, you are really unfriendly. Standing in front of Chrollo, Fischer said with a light smile, but his eyes scanned the surroundings involuntarily. The whole church has been set up with traps, and sure enough, this guy is not a fuel-efficient lamp. There are so many bombs underground. Once it explodes, at least half of this abandoned city will be destroyed. Beside Fischer were Kurapika and Indus, and there was no one else. On the other side, none of the remaining members of the brigade left. Hisoka, Cube, and Pak Noten are all there. As expected, you found out right away. Chrollo also noticed Fischer's gaze, and said with a smile, let's make a deal. Chrollo knew that Fischer had already seen his arrangement, so he made a deal without fear. Oh, what deal? Fischer asked with interest after hearing the words. I'm not going to run away. Instead, let the Finks get out of here. Chrollo spoke his mind. Impossible. Everyone here, I won't let anyone go. As soon as Chrollo finished speaking, Kurapika stood up and shouted emotionally. His eyes turned into fiery red eyes. Sure enough, fiery red eyes are really a beautiful thing, worthy of being one of the 7 beauties in the world. Seeing the change in Kurapika's pupils, Chrollo said with emotion. Hearing that, Kurapika's fiery red eyes became more vivid, as if they were about to bleed. However, Chrollo ignored it, and continued to speak as usual. Then, let's change the deal me, Lev, and Finks stay here. Hisoka, Kubai, Pak Noten. Let the 3 of them get out of here. Kubai and Hisoka joined the brigade after the Kairuta incident, but Pak Noten did not do anything at that time, and was not contaminated with the blood of the Kairuta tribe. I know you have principles, and you won't do anything to people you have nothing to do with, so you don't have to act with me. Let the 3 of them go, and I will deactivate the bomb in the ground. Otherwise, when the bomb explodes, no one will survive in this area within a radius of 1 kilometer. Anyone in the brigade can die, including the leader himself, but the brigade cannot die, which is the credo that Chrollo believes in. In today's situation, it is impossible to let the rest of them escape unscathed. At least 3 members, Hisoka, Kubai and Pak Noten, who have a chance to survive must be sent out. It's time to redevelop the brigade. That's the idea of Chrollo. This guy thinks so much about the brigade, making this sacrifice to keep Hisoka alive. If you let him know Hisoka's true intention, I don't know if he will vomit blood with anger. I know. But before that, I need to test it. Although Kurapika was excited, he didn't exaggerate so much. He himself would choose to let the 3 of Hisoka leave. The reason why he was so excited was because he didn't want Chrollo to take advantage of it and threaten him. If Chrollo knows that he is ready to let the 3 of Hisoka go, then Chrollo will definitely put forward other conditions. For example, let Finks and Peeling Lev leave and stay by themselves. Now, though, Chrollo has made it clear that Kurapika doesn't want to act either. Because it has been clarified, both parties know that this is the final bottom line. Chrollo can't use this threat to make other conditions. Soon, Kurapika tested all 3 of them with the soul-chasing chain of his ring finger, and the 3 passed the test perfectly. Kurapika let the 3 of them leave. It's such a pity. Before leaving, Hisoka glanced at Chrollo, showing regret, and then left here at a pulsating pace. If Fischer hadn't been here, he might have actually had a fight and fought Chrollo. However, Fischer is here, he really dare not have this kind of thought. He was afraid that Fischer would kill him if he didn't agree with each other, and that he would really suffer an indiscriminate disaster, and he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Hisoka could only silently regret himself in his heart. The overripe apples are gone, and the happiness is gone. Holding this resentful thought, Hisoka left here with enchanting steps. What an accident. Aren't you afraid that I will detonate the bomb in the ground after they leave? Chrollo asked with a smile as he watched the 3 leave unharmed. Vertical bar. You can also try to see if mine is faster than yours. Fischer responded with a smile. Sure enough, being locked, This feeling. I sort of understand why Machi was so terrified when he reported your information to me. Let me completely be unable to raise the idea of resistance. I feel like if I make a move, I will die on the spot. The smile on Chrollo's face froze, and a drop of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Although he couldn't see it, Chrollo could feel that Fischer was locking himself all the time. Not the lock of mind energy, but an invisible aura that made him dare not make any movements at all. He had a feeling that even if there was any disturbance in himself, he would be hit like a thunderbolt, and he didn't even have the chance to trigger the bomb that had been buried in the ground before. Okay, they've left. You, Lee Mohel, can act now. Kurapika, take him to find a battlefield. Indus, you also leave here. As for Finks and Flaklev, they're here to stay. Hearing such words, according to Fink's past personality, he would absolutely go berserk. But this time, Finks didn't dare to make any movements at all. Just like Chrollo, there were several drops of cold sweat on his forehead, and his eyes were fixed on Fischer with vigilance. So does Flaking Lev on the side. The two of them felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy, and they did not dare to make the slightest movement. Yes, Master Fischer, Indus replied, then turned and left. But Kurapika turned around and walked outside to harass. As for Chrollo, after being silent for a while, he also got up, put his hands in his pockets and walked outside. I see. Chapter 129 Intelligence Gap, Fatal Flaw. TSK. Chrollo really deserves to be a criminal group with high IQ. It's such a big trap. However, he is really kind to the members of the brigade, and he is very sure, not too much. Walking around in the church, Fischer said with emotion. The entire church basement is covered with bombs made by N. Based on the amount of N-chi wrapped in the N-bomb that Fischer felt, once it exploded, at least 1/10 of this abandoned city would be destroyed, and it would be completely destroyed within a kilometer. That's why Fischer let Kurapika and Indus leave. However, Fischer is not afraid of this stuff. Because Fischer is a thunder fruit user, N has no effect on Fischer. And the explosion couldn't have a restraining effect on thunder. That's why Fischer dared to stay here. Otherwise, with this level of explosion, Fischer would still suffer considerable injuries no matter how strong the Enhancer's defense was. The Ant King's defensive power is terrifying enough. He was almost blown back to his mother's womb under the Rose of the Paw. As for Fischer, although he has an Enhancer Nian-Chi property than the Ant King, he is stronger than the Ant King in Nian-Chi defense. But the Ant King's physical defense is much stronger than Fischer. Although the 350 power of this trap that Chrollo spent the night setting up is not as terrifying as the poor man's rose, it should have half the power. Of course, as the head of the brigade, the interests of the brigade will be given priority in everything, and naturally it will also be considered for us, Finks said weakly. At this time, he was sitting on a stone with his head lowered, his eyes were no longer as fierce as before, and replaced by anxiety. The mummy that peels off love can't tell what he is thinking. And Fischer ignored the two of them. His purpose here is to watch these two people, so that they cannot escape, and after Kurapika finishes Chrollo, he will bring them to join Kurapika. Of course, just in case, Fischer asked Wutong to contact Menchai and let Menchai follow him. Although he has confidence in Kurapika's strength, Chrollo, after all, is a high intelligence and well-known electrician thief. The extreme intention of this guy has made him have many strange abilities. If you are not careful, you may fall into this guy's way. Although he wants Kurapika to take revenge alone, Fischer will still intervene if things cannot be done. Fischer will not let his own faction members lose a powerful combat force because of Kurapika's willfulness. On the other side, something happened to Hisoka after they left this abandoned city. Hisoka, from today onwards you are the new head of the brigade. Pak Noten complied with Chrollo's nomination and prepared to make Hisoka-kun the new head of the brigade. Ah, if you say this, I will give up on this. Hisoka directly refused. Why? Pak Noten frowned, and Kubai looked at Hisoka puzzled. The purpose of joining the brigade is to fight Chrollo. Since Chrollo has no chance to survive now, I don't care about this brigade. Hisoka smiled charmingly. Then he reached into his back with one hand and began to fiddle with it, talking while fumbling. Hisoka pulled his hand out and took out a piece of paper with a spider on it. Then, under the gaze of the two, the spiders on the paper disappeared completely, and the paper turned completely white. Then, goodbye. Seeing the stunned look of the two, Hisoka was very satisfied, turned around and waved away. It wasn't long after Hisoka left that the two came to their senses. Pak Noten, what should we do next? Kubai looked at Pak Noten and asked. Kubai, you should leave your liver too. Lujashi is dead. I want Captain. Don't follow me. Pak Noten was silent for a while, then said, and then walked towards a certain direction. There, she sensed the breath of the leader fighting. Above the wilderness, there was only Kubai standing there alone, motionless, like a statue. Wow, this Chrollo is really powerful. In such a short time, I have already used 3 kinds of N. Well, Ajpk, but he stole these N. I found that every time this guy uses N, he has to open the book in his hand. Once the book is closed, the ability to use it will disappear. Should I tell Kurapika? No, Kurapika should have noticed it. On the wilderness, not far from the battlefield where Kurapika and Chrollo were, a group of women were chatting with each other at this moment. Menchai wasn't the only one who came here, others came too. Crook, Gale, Shizuku, Michi, all came. And Wu-Chong stood behind them, with his hands behind his back, standing respectfully. Although they are both housekeepers, Menchai and others, who are directly under the housekeeper, obviously have a higher status than Wu-Tong. No, it is better to say that Wu-Tong is very clear that the gap between himself and Menchai and others in Fischer's mind is incomparable. This guy has a deep understanding of my situation. Even the ability I just acquired is very clear. I won't get close at all, but use chains for long-range attacks. There is a problem of too much information gap. Chrollo, holding a book in one hand and a cloak in the other, was thinking while avoiding Kurapika's chain attack. Thief's ultimate intention. I know your ability very well. You have stolen a lot of N from other N masters, so it is very unwise to approach you casually. The best way is long-range warfare. No problem. I have enough Nianchi to fight war of attrition with you. When Chrollo was troubled, Kurapika suddenly spoke, and said his fighting method this time with a cold expression. Sure enough, the pros and cons of the intelligence gap emerged. The possibility of using the thief's ultimate intention to deal with this guy is very low. No, it's still possible. After hearing Kurapika's words, Chrollo's face twitched slightly, and he said silently. However, he did not despair, because, among the abilities he stole, not only the ability of melee combat, but also the ability of long-distance combat can be used. However, this ability needs to be used to the fullest, as a trump card. Dodging the attack, looking directly at Kurapika, Chrollo murmured inwardly. At the same time, Wu-Tong kept answering the phone calls from his subordinates. Lord Indus, I've found it. On the other side, in Meteor Street, several housekeepers of the Zoldyck family are here, and one of the housekeepers who seems to be the leader is reporting on the phone. Chapter 130 Fischer like a villain. Do you think your team leader can defeat Kurapika? Sitting on a stone slab made by Chrollo before, Fischer said to Finks and Shalev with great interest. Although it can't deal with you, it is definitely more than enough to deal with that fiery-eyed guy. Our team leader has never lost since his debut, not even fighting Silva's Zoldyck 3 years ago. Mentioning his regiment leader, Finks' eyes became fierce again, staring at Fischer, and sternly said, Have you never lost? Indeed, Dad said before that he and Chrollo had no draw winner. But that doesn't mean Dad hits. But the guy does. Just want to kill Chrollo, you Silva. The price to pay is too high, not worth it. If you really want to kill Chrollo, Dad Silva can still do it. Huh? It seems that those people in the family are still very good at handling affairs. This guy Wu-Tong has trained a group of good men. Suddenly, Fischer sensed something and said with a light smile, What are you laughing at? With this smile, Finks thought that Fischer was laughing at their leader. Even if he was afraid of Fischer's terrifying aura, he couldn't help being very upset at this moment. Huh? Are you talking to me? Hearing Finks' slightly hostile look, Fischer stopped smiling. His expression became indifferent, and he said coldly to Finks, I asked what you were laughing at just now. Were you laughing at our leader? Finks seemed to have less fear in his heart since he spoke just now, and he stood up and shouted loudly. Originally, Finks was an arrogant, impatient person who would get mad at every turn. Just now he was taken aback by the aura of Fischer locking him. Now, Fischer's aura is no longer locked onto him, and the opening just now made him more courageous, and the fear in his heart suddenly became much smaller, and he directly yelled out his inner words. However, as soon as he shouted out, Finks came back to his senses, feeling very bad inside. There is already a trace of regret in my heart. However, this remorse did not save his life. Before Phaeton was angry, he provoked Fischer and was ready to do it, but the regiment asked Fischer to kill him. The current Finks is undoubtedly following Phaeton's old path, and the consequences of taking Phaeton's old path are clear. However, Finks did better than Phaeton. While feeling remorse in his heart, it also made him very calm. Let Finks notice Fischer's shot and react to resist the attack. However, at Fischer's level, Finks' resistance is useless at all. Before the reaction could start, Finks was grabbed by Fischer's neck and lifted up. Don't get me wrong, it's not that Fischer's arm is up. Fischer isn't as tall as Finks yet. It was the thunder arm extended from Fischer's thunder power. The power of thunder directly invaded Finks' body, paralyzing Finks' whole body, and he couldn't move for a while. Seeing this, the peeling lev at the side immediately took off his bandage, revealing his strange body, and was about to attack Fischer. But it was stopped by Fischer's angry shout. Don't move, if you move again, I will kill you. Just one sentence froze the whole body of Chrollo, because he could feel that as long as he dared to move again, he would die. The feeling just now reappeared. The feeling of having a knife around your neck, ready to wipe yourself at any time. In the beginning, I didn't have any plans for your brigade, and I planned to let Kurapika handle it alone. I didn't plan to kill Phaeton, but that guy actually wanted to do something to me, so I killed him. Afterwards, I didn't want to do anything to your brigade, but I didn't expect your brigade to actually want to do something to members of the Zoldyck family, so I can't blame you. I am very aware of the ability of your leader, coupled with his high IQ. With Kurapika's strength alone, it is very difficult to defeat him alone. After all, Kurapika has only been practicing for half a year. He has experienced too few in battles and lacks experience. It's okay to fight you who only have one kind of N. It's still a bit tender to fight Chrollo, who can use multiple abilities and can be matched. So I gave him a hand. Maybe you don't even know it yourself. Under this church, there are many N bombs, which Chrollo set up this day, and he stole the ability. But just now, these N bombs are gone. Do you know what this means? Pinching Finks and intimidating Lev, Fischer chattered like a villain. The leader has been defeated, Shira Lev said with his pupils shrunk and his tone trembling. Not so fast. Chrollo's N is almost always obtained in Meteor Street. Seeking flowers. So I sent people to Meteor Street to kill all the owners of the N that your leader stole there. The N collected by the thief's ultimate desire. Only if the N itself does not die, its ability can always exist. In other words, I ruined his thief's ultimate mind. Fischer looked at Finks whose eyes were tearing apart, and said the last sentence lightly, then with a thought, he grabbed Finks' thunder hand and twisted it directly. Completely ignoring Finks' condensed Nianchi defense, he twisted Finks' neck. Stay here, wait until Kurapika finishes your team leader, then it will be your turn. After dealing with Finks, Fischer said lightly to Pilaf, then ignored this guy and picked up the book that Chrollo put here. Looked up. As for the peeling Lev, looking at Finks lying limply on the ground, he didn't say a word. And when Fischer plays the villain and explains his setup to Finks and Shref, it's Kurapika's side. No, to be precise, it was the side of Mancha and others who were watching the game. Michi used the psychic stitch combined with the ability of the fruit of the thread to bind the Pack Noten who came here. Pike, the situation is over. Why did you come here? Michi looked at Pike Noten with a complicated expression and asked. Why? Michi, why did you betray the leader? Pack Noten didn't answer, but looked at Michi in shock. You know, in the brigade, Michi is an existence that obeys the orders of the head of the brigade. An existence capable of dying for the commander's order. But now, Michi like this stands on the opposite side of Michi. Michi was changed by Fischer. Pike. Shizuku behind Michi showed a face and replied lightly. Shizuku. I remember from the information given by Fischer, this guy's ability is to manipulate memory, right? This is a very useful ability. Do you want Fischer to change this guy's mind and make her a companion? Another head came out from the other side of Michi and said aloud. It was Crook. It can be regarded as censors and intelligence collectors in the faction. The faction lacks professionals in this field. A head popped up and said on Crook's head, it was a concover. Then it's decided, I'll go find Fischer later. Menchai also popped up on Shizuku's head, and he said, Michi, Pack Noten, loss. Chapter 131 Chrollo's ability. Ignoring Pack Noten who had been arranged by Menchai and others in a few words, he shifted his sight to Wutong. At this time, Wutong completely ignored Menchai and the others' coquettish operations, and was quietly watching the battle below. However, one could tell from the frown on his face that Wutong was a little dissatisfied at this time, because it has been more than 10 minutes since he spoke on the phone just now, and the men on Meteor Street haven't contacted him yet. This means that they haven't succeeded yet. With the help of the mistress over there, it took such a long time. Wutong is really dissatisfied with these guys' ability to do things. He has been observing the changes in Chrollo's expression. Chrollo's facial expression has not changed much during the battle, which means that the N stolen by Chrollo has not disappeared. It seems that after going back, these guys will be given special training to strengthen their business capabilities. Indus said with a faint 700. However, as soon as the words fell, Wutong noticed something. The corners of his mouth slightly raised, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and he stretched out his hand to push the eyes on the bridge of his nose. It seems that the expected time has not been exceeded. Let them go this time. Pushing his glasses, Wutong said lightly. What the hell are you doing? Chrollo Liu Silva. The eyes were fixed all the time, and the corner of Kurapika's eyes kept scanning to both sides of him. In his eyes, while Chrollo was dodging his own attack, the chi on his body continued to spread towards the ground, and those diffused chi seemed to be drawing a very complicated pattern. Faced with this situation, Kurapika was very afraid, but he couldn't continue to distance himself from Chrollo, because this is already the furthest distance between him and Chrollo. If it is further away, it will be very bad for you to deal with Chrollo, and the attack cannot achieve the effect you expected. Noticing my actions but still not pulling away, this is the best distance for your attack to achieve the best effect. Facing Kurapika's questioning, Chrollo said with a smile. I'm relieved. Remote ability. That is to say, as long as this pattern is completed, will you have the long-range ability to attack me? Kurapika said in a low voice, his pupils shrinking slightly. Actually I'm not afraid of you knowing. This ability is called the Hexagram Arena. I got it from a self-proclaimed Onmyoji. It is specially used to deal with opponents like you who don't like to fight me head-on. It's just that this thing needs to have this formation. As long as you draw the formation, you won't be able to leave this formation. Chrollo said with a faint smile. Of course, this ability consumes a lot. Even if I dare not use it for too long, it will be sucked dry. And there is one more thing I didn't say. Chrollo said this sentence in his heart. Just say your weakness like this. Aren't you afraid that I will leave this formation now? Kurapika didn't change his face, and still waved the chain to attack Chrollo. Chrollo dodged easily and freely, and opened his mouth while hiding. No way. Once this ability is activated, once I am asked, then I have to explain the basic function of this ability. It was obtained from an old antique. That guy has always upheld justice and wanted to create a fair and just confrontation method, and then this ability came into being. It's the same as my thief's ultimate intention. I need to sane when I activate it, so I hate this ability. However, this old antique is not a real old antique. This guy is a decent person, although it is said to be fair and just on the surface. It is doing everything in the dark. Chrollo continued in his heart. And, in order to kill me, will you leave here? Chrollo said this sentence very confidently. Chrollo was well aware that Kurapika hated him for his actions. In this case, even if the situation is not good for him, Kurapika will not just give up. This place is too unfavorable to my fighting style. Many abilities cannot be used, and only using such expendable abilities is the biggest failure. If I can survive this time, I will have to steal some abilities that are also applicable in this environment, Chrollo thought to himself. Indeed, I will not leave, even if I am bound here by your ability. Kurapika slowly fell from midair, responding to Chrollo's words. Finally let Fischer give himself this chance to fight Chrollo alone. How could Kurapika give up? However, I can destroy your formation before it takes shape. You can also try to stop me, Kurapika said lightly, and the chain in his hand no longer attacked Chrollo, but launched towards the ground of the array that he saw Chrollo set up. While swinging the chain, Kurapika kept his eyes on Chrollo, guarding against Chrollo's attack. However, the Chrollo move was beyond Kurapika's expectations. Chrollo didn't move at all, just watched Kurapika's actions, watching Kurapika destroy the formation on the ground. This surprised Kurapika. Immediately, Kurapika understood why Chrollo was so calm. Because, even if Kurapika destroys the ground that depicts the formations, those formations still exist, floating above the destroyed ground as if floating in the air. This ability is not attached to the ground, but attached to the air. As long as there is air, no, as the old antique said, it is the aura. The array is attached to the aura and cannot be destroyed. So even if you completely destroy this place, the array will not disappear. You can't stop it, Chrollo said confidently. It's really troublesome. Since that's the case, then forget it. Kurapika was slightly silent when he heard this, then sighed, stopped doing useless work, and continued to attack his Chrollo. Is it really good? Maybe you can destroy this array if you try. You know, once this array is formed, then I can shrink it, pull you to my 3.6 side, and fight you in close quarters. Seeing this, Chrollo secretly thought it was a pity, but then continued. Open your mouth. Compared to this, I'm more curious about why you can use this stolen ability without using that book. Kurapika ignored it, and continued to attack violently, while making a faint sound. Ah, you said this, it's a secret. I can't tell you, Chrollo said with a smile. The chapter of the bookmark, right? It allows you to use the ability to steal the ability even if you close the thief's ultimate book. However, Kurapika said the answer. This time, the smile on Chrollo's face disappeared immediately, and his face was extremely gloomy. I have never used this ability since it was developed. Why would this guy know? Is my information leaked to this point? 132nd Chapter Successive Flaws. Chrollo was very afraid of the leak of his own information, but unexpectedly, even the ability that he developed but never used was known. This made Chrollo very uneasy. He was so uneasy that his mind was starting to become chaotic. Why do you know about my ability? Does the other party have the ability to spy on the heart, the ability to spy on the memory? If so, when did I snoop? Why didn't I notice it? The confusion reached this level directly. Chrollo just made a guess and directly confirmed it, and didn't mean to rule out the guess at all. Great opportunity. Seeing Chrollo's uncertain face, Kurapika murmured secretly, and then the chain in his hand suddenly accelerated, and it was pulled around Chrollo's waist. Chrollo flew straight 09 and hit the ground heavily, with blood continuously flowing from his waist. However, it was Kurapika's twitch that swept away the chaos in Chrollo's mind, and he regained his shrewdness before wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Chrollo slowly stood up. Careless. I was disturbed by this guy's words, and I can take advantage of it. However, it's okay. This kind of mistake can only be made once, and there must be no next time, and the next time you will die. Looking at the chains that Kurapika struck again, Chrollo muttered in his heart, and the feeling from his waist made him. He knew that there was no next time for him. Also, the attack just now, the enhancer's thoughts. Being able to control the chain to such a flexible level, I thought it was the ability of the emitter, and the degree of energy wrapped in the chain. I thought it was the transmuter, but now, I think it is the enhancer. What kind of department is this guy? Being able to control it to this extent is obviously only possible for the emitter. The level of energy injected into the chain can only be achieved by transmuter. However, the power of that blow just now can only be achieved by an enhancer. All three systems? It's impossible. Unless this guy is a trait system that can manipulate various systems at will. This guy has been showing his weakness to the enemy and looking for opportunities. This time I defended in time. When the Na in the most dangerous time, they often unconsciously wrap the thoughts that they can control into the most dangerous places. The strength of my defense should have been tested in the attack just now, and the attack power of the next attack will definitely be stronger. I have no way out. and I must not be attacked by this guy again. Otherwise, I will lose my ability to move in an instant. Dodging Kurapika's attack at the fastest speed, Chrollo continued to make the formation while thinking. Chrollo is worthy of being a seasoned and strong man. He thought of so much in a flash. I didn't expect that at that moment, you actually defended against my attack. Are you worthy of being the head of the brigade? This reaction speed is really admirable. Looking at Chrollo, who was constantly dodging his own attack, Kurapika was indifferent said, but the tone is full of irony. Facing Kurapika's provocative words, Chrollo ignored them, as if he didn't hear them at all, kept avoiding his figure, and accelerated the speed of drawing the formation. Only by completing this formation as soon as possible can I recover from this disadvantage. This is Chrollo's inner thoughts at this time. There are only two types of Nhi stole that can handle this ranged N. The first type is this array. As for the second type, originally, he planned to use it at the right time, but after seeing that Kurapika can control the N of 3 systems, especially after knowing that Kurapika's enhancer can also be controlled, he gave up. Because, my second long-range attack ability is more tricky, but the attack power is not very strong, and it must penetrate into the enemy's interior to play its due role. However, think about the level of enhancer Nyanki that Kurapika attacked himself just now. No way, my ability can't break through his defense at all. However, this guy, at such a young age, why does he have such a huge air conditioner? This kind of high-intensity attack has been going on for almost an hour. Why can it still be maintained? Phew, it would be great if I were in a crowded place, and the abilities I can use would be much more convenient. With a rare complaint in his heart, Chrollo stopped thinking about other things and focused entirely on the battle. This kind of high-intensity battle is easy to be seized if you are distracted. Chrollo knew that Kurapika on the opposite side was also a 1000th generation with superior IQ, and was very good at this kind of battle. From the fact that he has used this high-intensity attrition method to fight for so long but is still not in a hurry, it can be known without any demeanor. Kurapika is a type of person who can force himself to be extremely calm in battle. If it were him, he would not show any expression that can make people see his own state, especially the kind that can't tell the winner in a short time, and can't form a crushing battle, because it will become a flaw. Destroy your own flaws. Chrollo, however, knows this and simply can't really do it. At the moment when Chrollo's array was about to be drawn, Chrollo's complexion changed drastically, his pupils dilated, and his movements slowed down a step. A chain wrapped in a powerful enhancer's energy was drawn directly on Chrollo's face. His cheeks were bloody, and the whole person flew out, heavy smashed into the rocky mountain. So that's it, hee, that's it. In the smoky mountain, Chrollo's voice came out slowly. Afterwards, the feather-like chains flew down continuously. The violent roar continued to spread, resounding through the sky. Chapter 133, The ants shake the big tree, ridiculously overwhelmed. In an evenly matched battle, do you know what will happen once one side has a hole? Do you know? Fischer said indifferently, looking at peeling Lev in the church. After finishing speaking, Fischer continued without waiting for a response from Lev. Once there is a flaw, the enemy will seize the opportunity and give it the most powerful attack. As for the second flaw, it will often become the fatal point of this person, because your strength has been tested. Kurapika has many ways to disturb Chrollo's heart. As long as there is one that successfully disturbs Chrollo's heart, then it will succeed. And the second is what I just told you. I helped him. Looking at the terrified Lev, a faint smile appeared on Fischer's face. Even with its back on Meteor Street, the brigade can't go against the Zoldyck family after all, because the Zoldyck family is too powerful. The brigade has only been established for more than 10 years. Compared with the Zoldyck family that has been passed down for hundreds of years, it is still too young and has been crushed in all directions. The information on the brigade has been collected by you. Even the chapters of the bookmarks that I have never used in front of outsiders have been clearly checked by you. The serious disparity in intelligence has made this collision a result from the very beginning, which is the fatal point of the brigade. The brigade never stood a chance against House Zoldyck from the start. It's ridiculous that I thought about attacking the Zoldyck family before. It's so ridiculous that I can't control myself. After dozens of chain attacks, Chrollo, who was covered in blood and flesh, raised his head with difficulty, and looked at the Chrollo, who was in front of him, spoke reluctantly, and finally his weak tone became self-deprecating. He guessed right. The appearance of the second flaw was his own defeat. The current situation has confirmed his previous predictions for himself. But, no way. In that case, he couldn't help being distracted. The six-pointed starring, which was about to be completed, completely disappeared in an instant. In addition, many of the stolen abilities disappeared in the thief's ultimate book. This means that those who were stolen by themselves in Meteor Street were all killed at the same time. The Zoldyck family has been fully prepared from the very beginning to kill themselves here. Looking at Chrollo muttering to himself, Kurapika didn't show any expression, nor did he question why Chrollo could easily kill a person like when he killed Nobunaga before. Kurapika just reached out and inserted the commandment pinky chain into Chrollo's chest, wrapping it around Chrollo's heart. Die. With a cold expression, Kurapika directly inserted the commandment pinky chain into Chrollo's heart. Although it is a chain used for restraint, it can attack the enemy without restraint. With a muffled groan, the bloody Chrollo slowly fell to the side. Go back. Looking at Chrollo, who had completely lost his voice and had no color in his pupils, Kurapika was silent for a while, then turned and left. Everyone, let's go. After coming to Menchai's side, Kurapika first glanced at the tied-up Paknotan, and said to Menchai and others without paying attention. I said, Kurapika, you're still too tender. Upon hearing this sentence, Crook shook his head resentfully. Facing this kind of guy, you have to be ashamed, because this guy is too cunning. You're still alive, but you pretend you're dead. Crook took a step forward, walked down, and said as he walked, what did you say? Everyone was stunned, and Kurapika was even more shocked, and quickly looked over. My ability is vitality, and I am the most sensitive to the feeling of vitality. Although this guy is already dead, there is still a very deep hidden vitality in his heart. I'm right, Chrollo Silva, Crook said indifferently as he walked slowly to Chrollo, who fell on the ground. I didn't expect to be spotted. It seems that I really deserve to die. Hearing Crook's words, Chrollo's eyes that had no color appeared again, and said in a regretful tone, exclamation mark. The terrifying power of the volcanic eruption directly hit Chrollo's heart, directly blasting a basketball-sized wound on Chrollo's chest. Immediately, Crook still felt that it was not safe, and blasted down with a strange force again, directly blasting Chrollo's head. If you can still survive this way, then I have nothing to say. After throwing out these two punches, Crook clapped his hands, curled his lips and said, then turned and left here, and soon arrived at Kurapika and others. Okay, I can't feel the vitality anymore. If this guy is still alive, then he deserves to die. Let's go, Crook said to several people. Thank you, Crook, I didn't think carefully. Kurapika glanced at Chrollo's miserable situation in the distance, and thanked Crook. No, we are companions now. No thanks. Let's go back to Fischer's side. Crook waved his hand and said casually, Everyone set off and left here. Chrollo Silva, the head of Phantom Troop, Honors, who was a hero of the generation, has officially fallen. Are you back? Looking at Kurapika and the others who had returned to the church, Fischer greeted lightly. I'm back. Let Kurapika come here to clean up the mess. Everyone nodded, and Crook said, then I'll leave this guy to you, and I'll go back first. Fischer nodded slightly, looked at Kurapika, and instructed Kurapika, leave it to me. Kurapika nodded in response, and then slowly walked back to the dull-faced shelf. Fischer glanced at it, shook his head, got up and left here, taking Chrollo's books along the way. Fischer found that the books this guy read were pretty good, and the content was quite interesting. Seeing this, Crook and the others also glanced at Kurapika and then left here. Chapter 134. The Family, the Power of Nanika. You said you want Paknotan to become a member of the faction? What do you think? Walking in the corridor, hearing Menchai's words, Fischer couldn't help but stop, turned his head, and asked suspiciously. This guy's ability is of the memory type, and he is a natural intelligence collector. There is no talent in this area among the directly subordinate stewards, so I thought you would reverse her memory and take her under your command. Anyway, there is no hatred between her and us. Menchai nodded and said with a smile. How could there be no hatred? We wiped out the brigade. However, after changing your mind, there will be no hatred. Fischer couldn't help but roll his eyes at Menchai when he heard that such a big brigade was wiped out by himself and others. How could there be no hatred? However, after reversing the thinking, this kind of trouble does not exist. Immediately, Shell began to think carefully. Do you manipulate memory? It is indeed a good ability, very practical in gathering intelligence. Paknotan was responsible for this when he was in the brigade. Although I know some trends of this world and some people's information, after all, I only know what the old thief in my previous life revealed, and there are still many secrets that I don't know. Paknotan's ability to obtain a person's memory just by putting his hands on others and asking questions directly is indeed of great help to him. Okay, I agree. With this in mind, Fischer directly agreed to Menchai's proposal. However, you need to wait for a while. That kind of power is not so easy to extract, and the success rate is not high. Thinking of his face that is comparable to that of the very chief, Fischer couldn't help but darken, and muttered dissatisfied walked away. It's obviously a good thing. Why does Fischer have such an expression? Menchai, who was still happy for Fischer's promise, suddenly had a question mark on his face when he saw Fischer's appearance. After dealing with the affairs of the brigade, Shell went straight back to Dry Mountain. It's okay, Fischer still likes to practice. In another year or half a year, chimeric ants will appear. It's better to improve your strength as soon as possible. Then you can go and have a look. It would be even better if I could fight against the Ant King. It should have a very big effect on my favor. With the strength raised to this point, Fischer no longer compares himself with Neferpitou, the pro-guard. Fischer now set his sights on a higher level, which is the level where the Ant King is. Of course, it is still necessary to fight against the pro-guards. After all, an opponent of Neferpitou's level is still effective in improving his current favor. Speaking of which, There seems to be such a speculation on the internet in the previous life. The appearance of chimeric ants was promoted by Netero's son by Jandro Netero. The purpose was to kill Netero and break the shackles on himself. I don't know if it's true or not. If it was true, then this guy by Yangda would be a bit rebellious and attack his father. In half a month, Fischer refined dozens of twisting powers, and it took 40 twisting powers to match his own luck. The reversal made it a member of the power. Fischer obtained for memory exploration from Pacnoten, and Pagnoten obtained the memory fruit that the system collected from one piece from Fischer's system. Charlotte Brin's memory fruit, very suitable for Pacnoten. As long as the brain hole is strong enough, then this fruit has a very powerful potential. And just when Fischer was about to enter the state of cultivation after dealing with the matter of Pacnoten, Dad Silva found it. Standing on the balcony at the top of the castle, Silva and Fischer stood side by side. I saw that you had something important to do before, so I didn't bother you. But now it looks like your business is over. How did you think about the original suggestion made by eel fans? To be honest, I feel very awkward about giving family members favors and drawing them into my influence, Fischer said with a slight sigh. Although Kurapika persuaded himself and he agreed, but when things came to an end, Fischer still felt very uncomfortable. I know your thoughts very well, but there is no need to have that kind of psychological burden, Fischer. The strong are respected in this world. If you are strong enough, you can order other people to do things for you. This is a normal thing. Although there is no such situation in the family, it does not prevent such rules from appearing in the future. Your strength has been recognized by everyone in the family. We are not unwilling to be your family. On the contrary, as long as you can lead the family to become strong, there will be no second voice in the family. Do you understand? Silva looked at Fischer and said solemnly. Silva is right, Fischer. If you can make the members of the family stronger, then everything is worth it. At this time, another voice came from behind, and Grandpa Jeno was slowly walking from the darkness with his hands behind his back. He came out and looked at Fischer kindly. Grandpa, you said the same thing. By the way, have you told grandfather about this? Fischer raised his eyebrows, and then asked. Having said that, Tanao has no objections. Grandpa won't be joining, though. Only people from our generation will join. Grandpa Jeno nodded and replied. Okay, you've all said that, then let's become members of my family together. Seeing the seriousness of the two, Fischer scratched his head, and decided to agree to the proposal of Grandpa and Dad. Family members are family members. Anyway, they are a family. Just doing what he said, Fischer directly summoned all the members of the family except Killua, and directly portrayed them with favor. Of course, Aluka did not. It's not that Fischer is targeting Aluka, it's that this guy rejects Fischer's favor. This is the first time Fischer has encountered it. This is enough to prove that Nanika in Aluka is terrible. The source of God's favor is directed at the gods, but it is rejected by Gia. This guy Nanika is at least at this level. This made Fischer feel that a monster really appeared in the Zoldyck family. Fortunately, with Killua and himself, otherwise no one would be able to suppress Nanika. Speaking of this, Killua has a good relationship with Nanika and can order this guy to do things by himself. As for myself, at the very beginning, the system was afraid that I could not grow up after coming to this world and be confused by Nanika's ability, so I was immune to the power of Nadiangia, the big boos of Novice Village. Among the Zoldicks, Fischer Killua is the only one who is not afraid of Nanika. Chapter 135, Feedback and Rewards. Mind gas bombs, camouflage, Dragon Stars series, bomb making, paper cut technology, electronic eyes, fathers, old brothers, grandpas, second childs, youngest, mothers. What the hell? Electronic eye, isn't that a machine? It's also ability. Feeling the ability acquired from the family members, Fischer muttered to himself. Especially the ability of my mother Kikyo made Fischer complain, because Fischer always thought that the electronic eye on his mother's face was a mechanical product, but he didn't expect it to be a product of an. Fischer remembers that his mother, Kikyo, has been wearing this thing since he was born. For more than 10 years like a day, it is really difficult for her to maintain this electronic eye all the time, which requires a lot of energy. However, after accepting this ability, Fischer also knows the function of this electronic eye. Electronic eyes have the ability to communicate and receive information. At the same time, it also comes with some small gadgets. Those are some gadgets similar to Bluetooth headsets. People who wear these gadgets can enter a communication channel created by Fischer using electronic eyes. Simply put, it is a gadget similar to a chat group, where they can speak freely. Moreover, this electronic eye is the kind that can receive messages no matter how far away it is, and doesn't need to consume mind energy at all. Even if one person is on the Dark Continent and the other is here, they can communicate, which is outrageous. It can be regarded as the best ability that Fischer obtained from the family members. Although it is an auxiliary ability, its effect on Fischer is even better than that of Grandfather Genuo's Dragon Star Group and Father Silva's Neon Chi Bomb. Not on. I see. Is this the reason why several of your direct butlers have improved their strength so quickly? Silva murmured after receiving the system reward from Fischer. Is there really no need to come back for your Grandpa Jeno? Asked Fischer worriedly after sensing his physical condition. The ability that Fischer gave him was too amazing, so even though he was mentally prepared, Jeno still worried about Fischer. In Geno's cognition, the stronger the strange, the more terrifying its price and conditions. Jeno didn't even know what the price would be for being able to show such an ability to greatly improve his own strength. As soon as these words came out, people in the family couldn't care less about feeling the changes in themselves, and all looked at Fischer. No problem at all. The only condition is to become a member of the Russian forces. You can only get rewards if you become a member of my faction. Fischer waved his hand and said casually, well, if there is something, you must tell us, understand? Dad Silva nodded and reminded, and then stopped talking. Well, that's it. You guys have a good time to feel yourself. I'll leave first. Well, let's go. Walking in the corridor, Xiuxian looked weird. I really didn't expect Grandpa to get this reward. After portraying Enhu as a member of the faction, Fischer obtained the tricks of the Dragon Star group from his grandfather Jeno. But Grandpa Jeno is even stronger for rewards. Animals middle. Phantom Beast Uio Fruit Blue Dragon Form. That's right. Yi Geno's reward is the fruit ability of Beast Kaido. Beast Kaido's, an undead monster. This thing, developed to the extreme, can compete with the Ant King in terms of physical strength. In addition, the ability acquired by Dad Silva is the power of evolution. This Fischer doesn't know what it is, so Fischer doesn't know what it is. However, one can tell from Dad Silva's reaction that Dad Silva is very satisfied with this power of evolution. As for the elder brother, the ability of this fellow, El Mimi, is endowed, and this Fischer still doesn't know what ability it is. However, from the perverted smile on my brother's paralyzed face, it can be known that this guy is as satisfied as his father. It is probably a kind of ability to manipulate, and it has the same attribute as the Mind Needle. And Mum, like Grandpa Jeno, is a devil fruit in the world of One Piece, a devil fruit called electronic fruit. This is the first time Fischer has heard of this devil fruit, and Fischer doesn't know what ability it is. But since it is electronic, it should have a lot to do with mechanics. The same is true for the second child, Miji, who is also a devil fruit, named the Fruit of Inspiration. The kind of inspiration that flashes of inspiration seems to be of the intellectual type. This thing is just like a tiger with wings for those who like to tinker with all kinds of bombs and various technologies. However, what surprised Fischer the most was that this guy was actually able to trigger the rewards of the system. This shows that Miji's talent is really not bad, at least stronger than Manchai's original, but this guy doesn't like to practice. Seeking flowers. As for the last Kaluto, the most wonderful thing this guy has obtained is Aimai's inheritance of yin and yang. This guy's is obviously paper type, but the reward given by the system is an unrelated yin-yang technique. However, if you complain about it, Fischer still gave him the reward. Maybe Kaluto is really talented in this area. The system may have seen Kaluto's talent in this area, so it may be specially given this reward. Thinking divergently along the way, Fischer came to the botanical garden where Crook and others were, handed over a few created Bluetooth headsets to Crook and others, then left Kukulu Mountain, and then went to visit friends. Xinshai also gave the Bluetooth headset to Kurapika and told Kurapika how to use it. In the end, Fischer set off for the final destination of his operation. Everyone in the family has portrayed Enhu, and Killua is the only one left. Fischer is going to ask Killua if he wants to join. This guy has now entered Greed Island with Gun. Bartra earnestly fulfilled Fischer's orders at that time, auctioned off the Greedy Island, and recruited troops and sent them to the Greedy Island according to the original plan. Killua and Gun easily passed the examination and entered inside. As for whether he can meet Bischi, Fischer doesn't know about that. It is the luck of the two of them to meet the best. With Bischi's character, seeing Killua and Gun are two bright and blinding gems, and they will definitely want to polish them. If not, then the two can only be blamed for their bad luck. Returning to Mount Dry, Fischer entered the game directly using the Greedy Island software. Welcome. It's you again. Yitan in the initial hut habitually spoke the words of welcome, but stopped in the middle of speaking. Why did I appear here? Fischer glanced at the surrounding situation with some doubts, and then asked. If you haven't returned to the game for more than 10 days, you will start again. Yitan said seriously. Really? Forget about this. Then, thank you, young lady, I have something to do, so I'll go down first. Fischer nodded suddenly, and then walked towards the stairs. This guy came in again. Do you want to notify Jin? After Fischer left, Eton was silent for a while, and then muttered to himself. Chapter 136, Double Standard System. In the end, Yitan still did not notify Jin. It has been notified once before, but nothing happened. So Yitan didn't want to bother with Jin's shit anymore. Fischer entered the Greed Island smoothly. These guys are still the same. Feeling the prying eyes from a distance, Fischer was deeply moved. However, the next moment, Shell's face froze because he found that after he finished expressing his emotions, these guys disappeared completely. It turns out it's me, Fischer thought, rubbing his chin. When he came here before, Fischer made an example. This time I probably recognized Fischer, and these guys ran away like shit. Sard, how can I find Killua? After standing there for a moment, 280 Fischer blinked and said in a daze, back here again. He doesn't have a single spell card now. Moreover, he has never met Killua before, so it is impossible to feel Killua's side with a spell. Oh, I remembered. In case I was caught by the brigade in Ukexin City and my life was in danger, I put a flashing mark on this guy. Said blankly after saying a word, Fischer remembered this matter. With a thought, Fischer teleported directly along the flickering mark. Who is it? As soon as he came over, Suixi's ear felt 2 attacks coming towards him. Boom, boom. You're so courageous, you dare to attack me. Sitting on a boulder with his arms folded, Fischer scolded with a face full of displeasure. Brother, we didn't do it on purpose. There are too many irritating guys in this game, so we have developed a conditioned reflex. Under the stone, Killua and Gun sat side by side, their faces full of embarrassment, Killua apologizing, rubbing the back of his head. Well, it is indeed a good thing to be cautious in this game. Hearing this, Fischer also nodded in agreement. The cards in this game have a lot of tricks. If you are not careful, you will be cheated, so you must pay attention. Okay, let's just talk about it. I came to you this time to ask you something. As for why there is no Bcg by their side, Fischer didn't specifically ask, but stated his purpose straightforwardly. Come out. Just like what I said before, encountering is luck, not encountering is bad luck. Brother, what are you talking about? Hearing this, Killua immediately became serious, sitting upright, and said seriously, Hey, do you want to be my follower? Fischer nodded, and then said the matter directly. Hey, brother, you still have this ability. In this case, I naturally want to join. After listening to Fischer's narration, Killua was astonished, and then agreed without hesitation. Brother Fischer, I want to join too. Is it okay? Gun on the side also excitedly raised his hands, actively requesting. Why are you joining in the fun? Fischer looked at Gun speechlessly. Brother, let Gun join in. Otherwise, this guy will definitely not be able to match my improvement speed, and he will die of depression. Killua also begged from the side. I'm afraid this guy will cause me trouble. Fischer said with salty eyes. Don't worry, brother, we will never cause you any trouble. Killua hastily assured. Yes, brother Fischer, I will never cause you any trouble. Gun also nodded repeatedly and hastily assured. Well, whatever you want, you can join if you want. I don't lose out if I have one more powerful subordinate in the future. Fischer was silent for a moment, then said. Take off the vest, I'll show you favors. Good. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting a new powerful member, and getting a sign-in reward once. May I ask the host if you want to sign in? Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the ability feedback from Killua Zoldyck, a member of the faction, and the host for obtaining Killua's cultivation talent. Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting a new powerful member, and getting a sign-in reward once. May I ask the host to sign in? Ding. Congratulations to the host for getting the ability feedback from the power member G-Freaks. The host has made a breakthrough. Boundary breakthrough allows the host to break through the limit of displayed energy and release energy that is twice the limit of displayed energy. Hey, Killua's cultivation talent. This thing is good. With Killua's cultivation talent, then my cultivation speed will increase again. Coupled with the ability to increase 10 times, my thoughts will definitely increase greatly. Promote. There are also boundary breakthroughs. It seems that J-Freaks' guessing punch can release a force star that surpasses his own dizziness. This trick is useless to N who have weak mind energy, but for my level, this trick works well. TSK. Shouldn't it be said that they are the protagonists? The value of the talents that these two people have exploded is really terrifying. Then, let's see what abilities the system will give these two guys. Ignoring the two little ones who are discussing with each other because of the favor and freshness, Fischer started to sign in to get rewards. Ding. The sign-in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Lightning Dragon Slayer Demon Crystal, Zanpaika Tao Yanlingwen, Killua Middle. Zoldyck Special Edition. Ding. The sign-in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the body of the dragon, to be developed, the Fruit of Vibration, G-Freaks Special Version. Looking at the system display in his mind, Fischer was stunned. System, you are treating them differently. Double standards? Just because these two guys are the main characters, so you gave 2 rewards? Fischer couldn't bear to complain about 2.7. Everyone else is a reward. But Killua and Gun are good. The system directly gave 2 kinds of rewards, and they are both very powerful ones. However, complaining about it, Fischer still handed over their rewards to them. Then he flashed directly under the puzzled eyes of the two. Fischer was afraid that if he continued to stay with the two of them, he would be envious and jealous. Brother, what's the matter? I ran away all of a sudden, and my face was still black. The excitement that was originally felt because of the powerful strength was directly destroyed by Fischer's departure, and Killua was only left to go out of the circle. I don't know. Gun on the side also looked confused, shaking his head blankly. System, double standard dog. Chapter 137 Trials. After turning Killua and Gun into dependents, Fischer went straight back to the initial hut on Greed Island and asked Eton to send him back. It is naturally impossible for other people to have this kind of treatment, but Fischer was different. Eton wished that Fischer would get out of here sooner. As Jink said before, Fischer is a ticking time bomb in the Island of Greed. It might explode at any time. For this kind of existence, Yetan naturally didn't want him to stay in the Island of Greed. After returning to Killua Mountain, Fischer couldn't wait to practice. With this practice, Fischer found that his practice speed had really increased. It is much faster than the speed of my previous practice. Fischer estimates that with his current speed, if he cultivates with all his strength, he can increase his mine energy by about 50,000 a month. 1 year is 600,000. Even if you don't practice hard, take time to improve various skills, you can raise about 30,000 to 40,000 every month, which is 40,000 to 500,000 a year. This speed of improvement. Fischer didn't even need 10 years to cultivate the extreme conditions for becoming a god. Phew, this is the best member feedback ability in these few times. Not even Gun's. However, Gun's boundary breakthrough has not been tested yet. Thinking of this, Fischer had a thought, and appeared directly in the wilderness. This is a wilderness where Fischer used to try tricks, and no one would come here. Standing on the uninhabited wilderness, Fischer closed his eyes and was calm. The next moment, Fischer opened his eyes suddenly, and a terrifying energy erupted from his body. The powerful momentum shot up into the sky, and the clouds in the sky were scattered by this momentum, and then under the influence of this momentum, began to spin up. Try the power of the thunder fruit first. With lightning flashing all over his body, Fischer began to condense the thunder that was fused by the conjurer Thundern and the thunder fruit. The thick thunder snakes burst out from Fischer's body and raged outside. At this moment, the flat wilderness immediately turned into potholes, and potholes several meters in size kept appearing under the raging thunder snake. Not paying attention to these, Fischer's eyes were serious, staring at the front, gathering the power of thunder. His right hand slowly moved behind, and Fischer's body stopped. The continuously gathering thunder gradually changed its color and turned into a faint purple, which made people feel the terrifying power at a glance. At a certain moment, Fischer violently threw this thunder force out! The earth-shattering roar resounded through the sky, and at this moment the entire land was directly torn in half, and a huge gully appeared in front of Fischer's eyes. At a certain moment, the mighty pillar of thunder extended from the ground and soared into the sky, drawing a brilliant ray of light in the sky, directly dividing the sky into two halves, clearly distinguishing each other. This world seemed to be divided into two worlds by a terrifying existence, and the whole world seemed to lose its color at this moment. Hey, the power of thunder with 500,000 thoughts is really terrifying. Flying into the sky, Fischer himself couldn't help but marvel at the continuous attacks that continued to expand the territory. Because the attack he unleashed not only divided the sky in the middle, but also created a huge canyon in this wilderness. The ground was still shaking under this attack. It feels a bit like Matsuki who hangs on the wall. Suddenly, a picture appeared in Fischer's mind, and he couldn't help but read it out. The scene he created just now is really similar to the effect of the wall hanging trick he saw in his previous life. The difference is that the hanging wall is black, but the one released is dark purple. Hanging the wall is a black flame, and he is a purple thunder. After watching for several seconds, the attack released by Fischer finally disappeared. Looking at the huge gully with no end in sight, the newborn canyon, Fischer was silent. The ability to break through the limit is really a bug ability for the existence of strong thoughts. If it was before, I would never be able to release this destructive trick. Okay, let's try the fusion technique of Enhancer and Domineering. I don't know how powerful my fusion skill will be with the ability to break through the boundaries. After feeling a lot of emotion, Fischer flew to one side of the canyon. Once again finding a wilderness area that is very flat within a kilometer, Fischer gathered his energy again. The powerful momentum is constantly gathering in Fischer's hands. The unrecovered sky was once again messed up by Fischer's aura. It is estimated that there will be no change in the clouds in this world in a few days. After a few seconds passed, Fischer finally gathered his maximum strength in his hands. The huge energy ball was quietly held in the palm of Fischer's hand. Fischer 930 struck the ground suddenly. In an instant, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Then came the great sound and the sound, but the elephant was invisible. The whole world became a vast expanse of whiteness, and no sound could be heard anymore. It was not until a few seconds later that the earth-shattering sound echoed in the world again. Boom! There was a huge explosion, followed by rumbling roars that spread out layer by layer like sound waves. The white light is also constantly dissipating. Finally, it was revealed where Fischer was standing. But Fischer was nowhere to be seen. What remains here is a huge pit with a depth of hundreds of meters and a diameter of at least several thousand meters. At this time, in the Killua Mountain, Fischer was sitting on the bed in the bedroom, blinking his eyes. So, I almost blinded myself. You need to wear sunglasses when you use this trick in the future. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Fischer froze for a moment and then swayed. The power of this move. I don't know if falling on the Ant King will seriously damage him. It's really exciting. After the outburst, Fischer recalled the enhancer arrogance he had erupted just now, and Fischer was a little ready to move. Chapter 138 Family Update. For the next 2 months, Fischer still didn't send out any missions, and kept taking them with him in Killua Mountain, improving his Nianchi cultivation and various combat skills. Other than that, there is nothing else to do. In the past 2 months, Fischer's Nianchi cultivation base has also improved rapidly. Even without swallowing the vitality fruit, it has reached the level of 1,124,000, and various skills have also become more refined. As for why he didn't swallow the vitality fruit, Fischer gave his share to Michi, and Paknoten, the last one to join, has not been allocated the vitality fruit until now. But 2 months have passed, and Fischer has gotten the biggest surprise in this period of time. Crook finally branched out the Jingai's vitality tree, and the new vitality has grown vigorously under the cultivation of Crook's vitality. It is estimated that in another half a month, the new vitality fruit will bear fruit again. At that time, there will be surplus vitality fruit that can be distributed to Paknoten. As for the remaining share, Fischer did not increase the share of the vitality fruit, but prepared to save it. However, Fischer decided that when the new vitality tree grows vitality fruit, it will give Grandfather Jeno and Father Silva 3 more shares, that is, 6, and let them cultivate their own direct housekeepers. It's fine if you don't have any extra shares, but now that you have extra shares, naturally you can't straighten the 2 previous patriarchs. After all, these direct butlers have been with them for so many years. As for how to distribute, that is their own business. Having said that, I have to talk about the situation of the Zoldyck family. After ungrading favors on the members of the family, Fischer directly succeeded as the head of the family. However, because Fischer has no time to care about these messy things, the various affairs of the family are still managed by his father Silva. Fischer is only in charge of cultivation. Neither Grandfather Jeno nor Father Silva objected to this point, because they already knew Fischer's next plan from Fischer. Accumulate strength, and when the strength of family members reaches a certain level, then part of the clan will be separated to go to the Dark Continent and take root in the Dark Continent. And in that place, strong strength is the most basic, and Fischer's strength improvement is the fastest in the whole family, and now there is no one in the whole family who is Fischer's opponent. In this case, Jeno and Silva will naturally not let Fischer be entangled in trivial matters. Regarding going to the Dark Continent, Silva and Jeno have no opinion. Rather, they agree with it very much, because the favor that Fischer portrayed to them can only be improved after going through various battles with powerful opponents. And to their current level, it is rare to find evenly matched opponents in the human kingdom. The only enemy who can harvest all kinds of powerful enemies is the Dark Continent. Among the Zoldyck family, Killua and Chrollo are the only ones who can use enemies to increase their favor in the human kingdom. Even Ilmi, there are very few who can improve. Speaking of this, Fischer wanted to laugh, because Grandpa Jeno often ran out in the past 2 months, and then came back with a bruised nose and a swollen face. After doing this several times in a row, Fischer asked out of curiosity. Then Fischer laughed. Grandpa Jeno actually ran to find the old guy Netero to discuss. Betten, so he came back like this every time. Then, after returning, Grandpa Jeno went to see his great-grandfather Maha again, and then came to Fischer for treatment with a more serious injury. However, thanks to Netero and great-grandfather Maha's tricks, Grandfather Geno's Inhui has been raised by 3 levels in the past 2 months. This kind of improvement speed cannot be compared even the protagonist of the dungeon world. As for Dad didn't do the same thing as Grandpa. First, Dad needs to deal with various patriarchal affairs. Second, Dad seems to be obsessed with developing the power of evolution he obtained recently. Fischer also asked Dad what the power of evolution Silva got, but every time Dad said he laughed without saying a word, so Fischer didn't bother to ask. In addition, my mother has been tinkering with various electronic-related machines recently because she obtained the electronic fruit. The second child, Ilian, ran to his laboratory. He didn't know what he was doing, but every time Fischer passed there, he could hear a series of dull muffled noises, as if he was making all kinds of bombs. As for Chrollo, the guy went off to Meteor Street by himself. Chrollo is a member of the Zoldyck tribe who can take advantage of the bounty in addition to Killua. There are a lot of Nin Meteor Street to give him experience. However, my mother was worried that something would happen to Chrollo, so she sent Wutong and a few more powerful housekeepers to follow. As for the last Eelfan, I won't mention this guy. After getting the so-called endowment, he became mysterious. The number of times the 2 returned home was less than a palm count. Fischer had no idea what this guy was doing. As for Menchai and the others, after staying in Killua Mountain for a month, Menchai brought Michi and the others into the depths of Shimale Wetland again to harm the monsters there. With the strength of the 3 Michi, Shimale Wetland can just level up the 3 of them and increase their favor. Alright, let's move back to the topic. In the past 2 months, apart from Crook's development, Gailu's kiwi fruit tree has also made progress. Gailu not only divided the kiwi fruit tree again, but also let the kiwi fruit tree start to bear fruit, but it will take some time for it to mature. And that's not what surprised Fischer. What surprised Fischer was Gailu's research report on the tree brought back from the wetland. Vertical bar, the thing is like this. I am sure that this tree has existed for at least 1,000 years, and there is a great possibility that it came from the Dark Continent *. Moreover, this kiwi tree is also a branch, and there are more powerful kiwi trees in the Dark Continent. In the research room of the Botanical Garden, Killua handed the report in his hand to Fischer, and reported to Fischer. Is there a main plant with better effect than these kiwi fruits? Interesting. It seems that Liao Wang's Dark Continent and his party are really necessary. Killua, I have a mission for you. When the time comes, go to the Dark Continent. Your mission is to find the body of this kiwi fruit. Can you do it? Looking at the research report in his hand, the corners of Fischer's mouth raised, with a faint smile on his face. With a smile, he instructed Killua. I may not be able to do it by myself, but if I have other people assisting me, then I have no problem. Killua didn't answer directly, but thought carefully for a while, and then gave a reply. No problem. When the time comes, you will find the companions you need. Fischer directly agreed to Killua's request. Then I'm completely fine. Killua smiled gently and agreed. Beep beep beep, beep beep. At this moment, the phone in Fischer's pocket rang suddenly. Hello, Master Fischer, Master Killua is back. Chapter 139 Killua's request. Return to the Island of Greed. Killua, why is that guy back? Is it already cleared? It can't be so fast. Hearing the report from the housekeeper on the phone, Fischer was slightly taken aback, feeling a little puzzled in his heart. Master Fischer, Master Killua said he wants to find you. The butler on the other end of the phone continued. Okay, let him wait for me in my bedroom. I'll go there now. Although he was puzzled, Fischer still ordered. Yes, this subordinate will do it. The butler replied respectfully. Isn't Killua in the Island of Greed made by Jin? Why are you back? Killua on the side listened to the entire conversation between the two, and was a little surprised. I don't know. Fischer spread his hands. He doesn't know what the hell Killua is doing. Okay, I'm leaving first. You can continue to work. After crying and saying goodbye to him, Fischer got up and left here. It's really coming and going in such a hurry. It's like this every time, and I don't want to stay here for a while. Looking at Fischer, who turned into a black spot and went away, Killua shook her head, with a bit of resentment in her tone. Naturally, Fischer didn't know about these things. At this time, Fischer has returned to the castle, and 463 walks towards the Japanese room. With Fischer's feet, so reached here in a few minutes even though the Japanese room was deep. Once in the Japanese room, Fischer saw Killua sipping a glass of juice through a straw. Not seen in 2 months, Killua looks like he's grown up a lot. Hey, bro, you're finally here. Seeing Fischer appear, Killua quickly spit out the straw in his mouth and shouted. The game hasn't been cleared yet. What are you doing out now? Fischer nodded, and then asked. That's why I came to you, brother. Come into the game and do us a favor. Killua nodded repeatedly, and then asked in a coquettish tone. Helping you guys? There are still things in the game that you can't figure out? Hearing this, Fischer was a little surprised. If you haven't become your own family members, before you get the rewards from the system, there are indeed some existences in the game that make Killua and can feel troublesome. But after receiving the rewards from the system, and it has been 2 months, with the talents of the two, their strength has definitely improved greatly. Now he actually asked him to come here, which is obviously very wrong. There is a very troublesome guy named Leiza. We need an 8-on-8 game of dodgeball with this guy. We happen to be short of one person right now, so I thought of you, brother. Killua nodded, and then explained simply. Missing someone? Then just find someone from the housekeeper to go with you. Anyway, the game software at home can still add new players. Hearing this, Fischer was speechless. Brother, no. That guy's dodgeball attack is very strong. I'm afraid that the other housekeepers won't be able to withstand that guy's attack. Originally Wuchong should be qualified, but now he is sent to Meteor Street by his mother, so I can only come to you. Killua shook his head, denying Fischer's proposal. Indus is not the only one who is qualified, it's just that you don't know much about the others. Fischer didn't say this, but asked rhetorically, where is Zipponian? Zipponian is Dad's direct housekeeper. I can't call you. Killua scratched her head in embarrassment. Okay, let me walk with you. However, let me go and fight this guy. You guys are pure bullying. Fischer sighed slightly, and then agreed. Just to bully people. Look, what did this guy, Ajf, do to my hand before? Hearing that, Killua not only didn't feel embarrassed, but also felt dissatisfied. He stretched out a hand that was under the low table and gave it to me. Fischer looks. I saw that Killua's hand was swollen like a pig's trotter at this time, and the shape of the hand was almost invisible. Hey, beat my brother up like this. It seems that I really need to be taught a lesson. Seeing Killua's hand turned into this way, Fischer's eyes flashed, and the terrifying aura also flashed away. Smiling said, brother, what happened to you just now? It's so scary. At the moment when Fischer's eyes flashed, Killua couldn't help but tremble all over, looking at Fischer with some horror. Shut up, bring your hand here, and I'll treat you. Fischer twitched his eyes when he heard that, then gave him a hard look and shouted, brother, what are you afraid of? I love you for nothing. Oh, Killua didn't dare to disobey Fischer's order, and hastily stretched out his hand in front of Fischer. Fischer put one hand on it. Life, N was activated, and the emerald green light covered Killua's hand. In less than 2 seconds, Killua's hand returned to its original shape, and the bandage tied on it became loose due to the recovery of the palm and fell off. No matter how many times I watch it, brother, your treatment of N is very terrifying. Moving his palms that have recovered so much, Killua sighed incomparably. Okay, stop talking nonsense, let's go, I will avenge you. Fischer didn't care about this guy's compliment, stood up, clapped his hands and urged, then turned and left. Oh, she quickly got up and followed. By the way, Fischer got the game software of Killua and Gun from Batra. Going through the process of the initial hut again, Fischer returned to the initial place of the Island of Greed. At this time, Killua and Gun, who returned to the game first, are already waiting here. Yo, brother. Do you have to do this every time? Killua waved his hand in greeting. Brother Fischer. Gun also waved his hands and shouted. I don't know if it's the rule. Anyway, it will be like this if you don't come back for 10 days. Fischer nodded and said. Immediately, Fischer urged. Okay, let's go and meet Leiza. Okay, use my colleague, Rabbi Shufu. Killua nodded, then opened his book, took out the spell card he got back from Gun, and activated it directly. The light emerged, and the three of them were directly carried by the light, soaring into the sky. Chapter 140 Can't afford to be hurt. In a seaside town in Rabbi Shufu, a ray of light descended from the sky and landed beside several people. Oh, here it is, a little blonde girl with a single ponytail in a gothic lily outfit shouted excitedly. Beside him is a middle-aged man with a strong body and an honest face, and there is another figure that is very familiar. Hisoka, why are you here? Fischer looked at Hisoka in surprise and asked. In the original book, Hisoka appeared here because of the entrustment of the members of the brigade. But now, Phantom Troop is completely non-existent. The only one that exists is Cube, who doesn't have much combat power, and the three of Machi have now become Fischer's men. Why is this guy here again? I have nothing to do, so I grabbed a game software and came in for a stroll. I didn't expect you to be here, Hisoka explained with a smile. I believe you ghost. Except for Gun and the middle-aged man, Fischer said inwardly at the same time. This guy would come in here, obviously looking at Gun. Do you need me to help you deal with this guy? Fischer turned to Gun and asked. Although Gun's strength has improved by leaps and bounds, he hasn't really grown up yet. Give Gun another year to grow, and Gun should be able to beat this guy Hisoka. But now, it's still a bit worse. As soon as Fischer said this, Hisoka, who had been smiling all the time, suddenly froze. Thank you brother Fischer, but no need, this is my agreement with Hisoka. Hearing this, Gun quickly thanked him, then rejected Fischer's kindness and explained. When did you make the agreement with this guy? Do you know how dangerous this guy is? Killua heard Gun's words and immediately came over, and shouted in Gun's ear dissatisfied. Gun was directly dumbfounded by Killua's yelling, and his eyes started to roll around. However, I didn't expect Killua and the others to meet you, Bisky. Fischer didn't care about this, and Fischer shifted his eyes to the little girl with blonde hair and ponytail, and said with a smile. That's right, this blonde little Lily is officially Bisigi, a follower of Xine and Liu founded by Netero. It is also Fischer's teacher for Killua and Gun. When he came to find Killua and Gun before, he didn't meet Bisky, and Fischer felt that the two of them had nothing to do with Bisky, but he didn't expect to meet them in the past 2 months. Seeing that Fischer had diverted his attention, Hisoka was slightly relieved. If Fischer really did it, he wouldn't even have a chance to cry. This guy is really too perverted, even more perverted than himself. Definitely be able to kill yourself in seconds. Did I say something wrong? This metamorphosis is not that metamorphosis. It seems that you know me. Did Netero tell you? Fischer Zoldyck. As for Hisoka's inner dynamics, everyone naturally didn't know. Fuss, said with a smile. No, just getting to know you. My two good-for-nothing younger brothers have been taken care of by you. Fischer smiled lightly and thanked him gently. Although Ziji's character is very dissatisfied, but now he has become his own dependent force, so what to do? This kind of thing is impossible to exist. If you're upset, get a beating. It's okay, no problem. Seeing these two shining gemstones, if I don't polish them well, I will be very sad. Bisigi waved her hand and said casually, it's really your character. Fischer smiled lightly. Thanks for the compliment. Bisky returned with a bright smile. Immediately, she took a look at the strong man who had been marginalized all the time, clapped her hands, and shouted loudly. Clap clap. Okay, don't waste time, let's get straight to the point. Everyone's eyes shifted over. Oh, by the way, before that, let me introduce you, Fischer. This is Gonyu, a partner we met in the game, a professional hunter. Bisky reached out to the middle-aged burly man and introduced to Fischer. Fischer Zoldyck, please give me your advice. Fischer stretched out his hand and said gently to Gonyu. Although he is a small person, since he is a partner with his younger brother, Fischer doesn't mind giving him the treatment he deserves. Please advise me more. Gonyu stretched out his hand a little nervously, and said to Fischer. He just saw with his own eyes that Hisoka, a scary guy, was too scared to move by Fischer's words. Seeking flowers. This let him know that Fischer is definitely a very terrifying existence. Even if he didn't see Fischer's burst of air conditioning, he could be sure of it. Okay, now let me introduce to you the situation of the dodgeball we are going to play next. Seeing that the two knew each other, Fischer said again, there is no need for this, I know the situation here. Let's go directly to find Leiza now. Seeing that Bbook was wasting time here, Fischer also had to politely interrupt Bbook's interest. Eh? You know everything? Killua, have you already told your brother? Bbook opened her mouth, a little dazed, and then asked Killua. That's right, since I'm looking for my brother to help, I naturally have to explain the situation here clearly, Killua said with a natural look, and then looked at Bbook with a strange expression. This made Bbook very upset. Originally, seeing such a handsome guy as Fischer, he still wanted to show off, but he didn't expect Killua to say everything he had to say, and she didn't have the part to talk at all. Resisting the thought of giving Killua a shudder, a fake smile appeared on Bai's face. Oh, well, then I don't need to say any more. Afterwards, Bbook took everyone towards the place where Leiza was. If Fischer knew that he was being targeted by Bbook, a girl with a lily appearance and a muscular aunt, he didn't know how he would feel. I guess it will be a feeling of emotion and fear. Feeling that after eating sweet fruit for so long, someone finally became fascinated by him, and what was frightening was that he would actually be fascinated by this guy. The muscular aunt can't afford to hurt. In fact, what Fischer doesn't know is that the charm brought by the sweet fruit really has an effect, but the women around Fischer have super endurance, so they didn't leak it in front of Fischer. Soon, everyone came to the gymnasium where Leiza was. I didn't expect them to invite you here. It's really troublesome. Seeing Fischer's first glance, Leiza's squinted eyes twitched involuntarily. Nice meeting, Leiza, I'm Fischer Zoldyck. Looking at Leiza, Fischer smiled and introduced himself. Chapter 141, Leiza who wants to run away. Leiza who goes all out. My little brother has been taken care of by you, so I'm here to find a place. Looking at Leiza, Fischer stated his purpose of coming here above board. It's not here to clear the customs, it's purely here to find a place. Yes, Fischer is here to find a place. Immediately, Fischer ignored Leiza and gave instructions directly to Golinu behind him. It takes 8 people to pass your level, right? Golinu, release your black and white sages, and prepare to begin. Yes. Hearing this, Golinu quickly stood up and responded, and then released his 2 gorillas, the black and white sages. Sure enough, it's a big trouble. Seeing Fischer's resolute look, even Leiza scratched his forehead unavoidably and became melancholy. He knows exactly what level Fischer is. After Fischer first entered the game February 57 inches, Jin immediately rushed over, worrying that Fischer would cause damage to Greed Island. Leiza knew immediately. When it happened, Lucca was sure. There is no doubt that Fischer is at the level of gold. This guy Jin was able to catch himself more than 10 years ago. What level is it now? No need to think about it. But now, an existence on the same level as Jin came to find fault with him. Leiza has the urge to throw away his responsibilities and run away. I injured the hand of Fischer's younger brother, the white-haired brat, in such a way. Now that Fischer came to find his place, one can imagine what will happen. Thinking about the scene when Jin beat him into a pig's head when he captured him, Leiza couldn't help shivering all over his body. What are you afraid of? At this point, Fischer just turned his head, saw it, and couldn't help raising his eyebrows. No, it's nothing. I just feel that this time is not good, Leiza said calmly, still squinting his eyes. Looking at Fischer's appearance, he must fight with him. Although Leiza was a little shadowed when Jin captured him, he still flinched and took a dodgeball to the beauty field and transformed into 10 beasts. Seeing this, Killua and the others also walked to their respective positions. It seems that you already know the rules, so let's start. Seeing that Killua and the others had already taken their positions, and that Fischer didn't care at all, Leiza naturally understood that Fischer's rules for his dodgeball were already understood, so I didn't say much. And after I said a word, I started to prepare for hitting the ball. However, it is different from the relaxed freehand brushwork when dealing with Killua and others before. This time, Leiza broke out with all his strength from the very beginning. Powerful thoughts erupted from his body, and he created a powerful account-opening arrogance that spewed out continuously on his body, and violent airwaves hit the gymnasium. At this moment, the entire stadium began to shake. The windows on the high walls on both sides were shattered into pieces under this wave of air, turning into a series of impacts and bursting out towards the outside. This scene is even more terrifying than when Gun broke out with all his strength in this game in the original book. All the people present, except for Fischer, felt the energy gathered on Leiza's body. They were extremely dignified, their eyes fell on Leiza's body, and they didn't dare to relax at all. However, compared to the dignifiedness of Killua and others, Fischer seemed very calm, and he seemed to be very comfortable and calm in the face of this huge thought energy. Did you burst out with all your strength at the beginning? You really think highly of me? Looking at Leiza who was still bursting out with Nian Chi, Fischer said with a smile on his face. I can't help it. After all, you are an existence of your level. If you don't try your best, you will lose ugly, Leiza said with narrowed eyes. Afterwards, the 10-foot-high gaseous flame that erupted on his body began to shrink, attached to his body surface, and rushed towards the dodgeball in his hand along the body surface. The air on the dodgeball changes from lavender to dark purple in just a few seconds. The lavender Nianchi has turned into a deep purple, and then it is so tight that it turns black. Looking at the blackened dodgeball, Killua and the others had no doubt that once this force broke out, it would easily destroy the stadium. And it wasn't until this time that Leiza stopped the concentration of mind energy in his hand, held the dodgeball with one hand, opened his squinted eyes, looked at Fischer and said lightly, "You are a catcher, don't gather mind energy what? This is my strongest blow." Yes, then I'll put on a show." Fischer, who was waiting for Leiza's dodgeball, was slightly taken aback when he heard this, and then smiled lightly. The next moment, a powerful wave of thoughts erupted from Fischer's body. The terrifying momentum was even more terrifying than Leiza's eruption. The gymnasium that had just stopped shaking shook again, which made Killua and Gun standing beside him shake. They were all pushed out, slid on the wooden floor and retreated 2 meters before stopping. Is this just for show? What a terrifying monster. Looking at the arrogance on Fischer's body, Leiza muttered inwardly. He didn't think Fischer was lying. After all, lying doesn't do Fischer any good. That said, it's a state of heavy pretense for Fischer. Monster. Cursing inwardly, Leiza slowly raised the purple dodgeball in his hand, and lifted it up slowly. Boom. The next moment, the Nianchi dodgeball that gathered the limit of Leiza's display of energy came out with a devastating impact. With this throw, the terrifying storm caused by the terrifying Nianchi made the gymnasium vibrate again, destroying everything around it completely. Wherever it passed, everything was wiped out, and the floor had completely disappeared. Completely annihilated under the destruction. The violent impact swept across, and the huge gymnasium was already toppled and destroyed, and the appearance of the gymnasium could not be seen at all. All this happened in this instant. The next moment, the terrifying dodgeball had already arrived in front of Fischer, proving that it hit Fischer's posing hands. Boom. An even more terrifying impact erupted the moment the dodgeball touched Fischer's hands. However, this should have erupted again, swept again, and the terrifying impact that ravaged the gymnasium disappeared the moment it erupted. This scene left everyone 1.5 dumbfounded, because they saw with their own eyes that the moment the power on the dodgeball exploded, it was completely suppressed by the mind energy on Fischer's body, without even a little bit of arrogance erupting. Thunder, little rain. However, everyone present knew how terrifying the power of this blow was. However, Fischer followed up so easily. He didn't seem to be struggling at all. He was still calm and indifferent. Then, it's my turn next. Are you ready, Leiza? I won't give you a chance to dodge. Just accept my dodgeball attack honestly. Fischer didn't care about the shock of Killua and others, and slowly raised the dodgeball he caught in his hand. Looking at the opposite Leiza, he reminded lightly. As soon as the words fell, the shining razor wrapped around the dodgeball! Chapter 142. The GM with bad influence. Well, that's about it. The faint blue lightning turned purple, and Fischer sensed the strength of the Nianchi on the dodgeball, rubbing his chin and said. When Killua and other around Fischer heard this, a drop of cold sweat broke out on their faces, and Leiza on the opposite side was no exception. Although Fischer's injured dodgeball was very calm, and even the razor didn't come out, everyone present could feel the terrifying power contained in it. It's troublesome. I can take it to this level, but I will definitely suffer serious injuries. Besides, this guy won't let me have the possibility to dodge. Leiza is not pedantic, and will not be stubborn to catch the dodgeball. The question is, will Fischer give him a chance to dodge? As Fischer said just now, he came to find a place this time, so he will never give himself a chance to dodge this shot. His only option was to take Fischer's blow with all his might. However, on the dodgeball in Fischer's hands, Leiza has already sensed the Nianchi that exceeds his own display capacity. That is to say, 09 said that even if he puts all of his energy into his hands when catching the ball, he cannot continue unscathed by using the hard technique. Without thinking about it, Leiza once again exploded with a powerful aura, and began to use advanced skills to gather his aura to his hands. As for worrying about the lack of defense in other parts of the body after using the hardener, Leiza believed that such a thing would not happen with an existence of Fischer's level. Since he came here to take revenge openly and above board, he would not choose these little tricks. It would be too disrespectful. Ready? Looking at Leiza who was gathering chi, Fischer asked kindly, and he was going to wait until Leiza raised himself to the peak before making a move. It's ready. Leiza, who was on horseback, nodded with his eyes open, and responded. Very well, then. Fischer nodded in satisfaction, then posed. Seeing this, Killua and the others dispersed one after another, not daring to stay by Fixie's side. They were pushed out just now with an outburst of aura, and now they are officially shot, and they will not be blown away if they are brought here! Without any warning, Killua and the others just heard such a whistling sound, and the next moment, a terrifying explosion sound entered their ears. While Killua and the others were in a state of confusion, a wave of terrifying air was directly set off in the gymnasium, almost overturning everyone present. All the fluorescent lamps on the ceiling were killed, and the gymnasium went dark at this moment. Is this the strength of this monster? It's really scary. In the darkness, using stretchable love to forcibly fix himself on the floor, Hisoka, who was enduring the blast, blocked his eyes with his hands and looked through the gaps between his fingers. Looking at Fischer's back, his heart was extremely shocked, and at the same time, Hisoka was also very fortunate. Fortunately, every time I wanted to flirt with Fischer, I forcibly suppressed it, and did not touch Fischer's bottom line. Otherwise, with this kind of attack, Fischer would give me a blow, and I could have someone set up a table for me. After a few seconds, the storm in the stadium slowly stopped. Where's Leiza? Gun put down his hands and looked forward with a confused face. His little head was full of doubts. Idiot. Did you see that hole? That guy must have been blown out by my brother, Killua said from the side, while pointing forward with one hand. There is a large hole several meters high at this time, and there are several walls behind this hole, and the same gaps appear in these walls at this time. Stretching out, everyone saw the scenery outside. Wow, Mr. Leiza must have been kicked out, Gun shouted in a fuss, and then ran out along the entrance of the cave. Brother, go and have a look. Killua came to Fischer and said to Fischer, let's go and have a look. Fischer nodded and agreed. A group of people walked towards the entrance of the cave, and soon came outside. As soon as they came outside, everyone saw that under the hillside, Gun was helping Leiza who was lying on the ground. Seeing this, everyone stepped forward. It's not bad, it was able to take my attack and only suffered this degree of injury. When he came to Leiza who was supported by Gun, Fischer looked at Leiza who was only injured in his hands, and not only praised him. At this time, Leiza's hands were directly useless, drooping at the waist, and his feet were also injured to varying degrees. Other than that, there were no other injuries. In the blow he had just now, Leiza was only injured to this extent. Even Fischer couldn't help but admire Leiza's strength. If this guy wasn't on Jin's team here, Fischer would have wanted to recruit him. This guy's strength is definitely not inferior to that of his previous father. Now your anger is gone. Leiza did not answer, but asked. Well, it's gone. Fischer touched his nose and said lightly. Seeing this, Leiza didn't speak, but with a thought. He took out a card from the game and read it out. Use the breath of the Archangel. The next moment, the card in Leiza's hand turned into light and disappeared, turning into a huge blonde angel. The blonde angel blew on Leiza, and the wound on Leiza's body quickly healed. Seeing this scene, the corners of Fischer's eyes twitched, thinking in his heart whether he should give it to him again. This GM, cheating in front of game players openly has a bad impact. But Killua and the others were dumbfounded watching this scene. Zasang, you are. Gun stammered. Gun, I forgot to tell you 633, I'm one of the administrators of the Greed Island game, responsible for the operation of this game. Leiza, who has recovered, broke free from Gun's support. Explained to Gun. As soon as these words came out, the four of Gun immediately petrified. After a long time, they played like game masters. Okay, Killua, I'll take care of this guy for you, so I'll leave first. Fischer glanced at Leiza contemptuously, and then said goodbye to Killua. Are you going to leave so soon? Killua came back to her senses and asked in surprise. I came here this time to find a place for you. Now that I have found it, I should go back too. Fischer nodded slightly and said, that's right, since that's the case, I won't keep you, brother. Killua understood, nodded and said, well, work hard. Fischer nodded, and then prepared to leave here. However, at this moment, Fischer suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Gun. Gun, Fischer called out with a serious expression. What's the matter, brother Fischer? Hearing this, Gun hurried over. Priority is given to companions in everything, understand? Fischer exhorted with a cold expression. Seeing Fischer's attitude, Gun shuddered all over and nodded quickly. Yes, I understand, brother Xia. With a warning, Fischer soared into the sky and left here directly. Chapter 143 Fischer who thinks too much. Although the current Killua is very different from the original book, the chance of being hurt by Ganshu's companions is not high. But Fischer still wants to warn Gun. If Killua is injured, Gun still treats Killua first, but instead heals Ganzu and the others as in the original book. Then Fischer may have to clean up the house. Fischer doesn't need this kind of sanctity to not put his companions first, but to heal the enemy instead. After leaving Greed Island, Fischer immediately summoned Wu Tong's replacement. Lord Fischer, what are your orders? This young steward is called Cedar, which is the same as the plane tree, and the name is the type of tree. At this time, he bowed in front of Fischer. I respectfully ask for instructions. From now on, send a large number of housekeepers to pay attention to the situation on the NGL side, and don't need to go in. Just stay on the perimeter. Once a professional hunter enters NGL, report to me immediately. Fischer gave an order to Cedar. Yes, Lord Fischer. Xong respectfully replied, and then left. Killua and their greedy island raiders have reached this point. and they will pass the level soon, several months earlier than in the original book. At this point in time, the Chimeric Ant Queen should not have come here yet. However, the possibility of reaching the NGL cannot be ruled out, and the butterfly effect cannot be ruled out. It's better to pay close attention. Sitting on the single sofa, Fischer thought silently. Ant King Maruam, I really look forward to your appearance. As for the humans in the NGL, Fischer doesn't pay too much attention. The survival of the fittest in this world, whether they can survive to see themselves, has nothing to do with themselves. If he really wanted to intervene deliberately because he knew these cruel realities, then Fischer couldn't manage how much time he had. Because there are crueler worlds than this. It might be cruel to say this, but Fischer really didn't want to get involved with the birth of chimeric ants, because it is possible that Netero's son, Byangda, deliberately created it in order to be able to go to the Dark Continent. And Byangda, this guy should have mixed with people from the Kajin Empire by now. It really ruined this guy's plan, and those guys from the Kajin Empire will probably come to make trouble for themselves. In order to cause trouble for the family in a country that has nothing to do with him, Fischer is not so holy. Being able to join V5 and make V5 become V6, Kajin Empire is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Fischer didn't bother to provoke the country either. At that time, they might have to use this country's plan to send people from the Gate country there. It is not a wise choice to provoke this country now. Although the Zoldyck family can also plan to go there by themselves. However, this obviously takes a lot of time, and it is not too much to spend several years preparing. Fischer can't wait that long. With the current strength of Mencha and others, if they want to quickly improve their strength, then they can only target the Dark Continent. Only then can the conditions for the promotion of the favor of members of the forces like themselves be met. It's not a good thing for an Hui to start high. At least there are still too few opponents in Mobius Lake who can help improve. However, there is one thing that makes me very tangled. This guy Banged is mixed with the Kajin Empire. It should be a cooperative relationship. However, Netero said that he put a shackle on Banged, and before his death, Banged cannot go to the Dark Continent again. And if Banged can't go, will the Kajin Empire not carry out this plan to go to the Dark Continent? Could the shackles that Netero spoke of be the same as Kurapika's constraints? Only after he dies, will Banged's constraints disappear, and Banged can go to the Dark Continent? It's really troublesome. Is it necessary to let Netero die in this chimeric ant incident? Thinking of this, Fischer frowned rarely. For Netero, an old naughty boy with a naughty personality, Sol still respects him a lot. Not for anything else, just because this guy can give his life for the human country. Fischer himself can't do it, but it doesn't prevent Fischer from giving due respect to those who can. Well, sure enough, let this old guy die once, and save him later. I remember the way this guy died in the original book was that the rose of the poor exploded, the whole person was wiped out, and even the Ant King Maroon was almost blown back into his mother's womb. I don't seem to be able to save this kind of death, Fischer murmured, and finally blinked cutely, gave up this idea, and thought again. Vertical bar. The poor man's rose in the old guy's heart was specially implanted by the international executives of V5 just in case Netero couldn't kill the Ant King Maruam. The purpose is to ensure that the Ant King can be killed in the East Goat autonomous state, and prevent the chaos of chimeric ants from spreading throughout the world. Then, as long as I can guarantee to defeat the Ant King, wouldn't this old fellow Netero not have to take the risk and let himself die? Okay, that's the decision. When the Ant King appears, I will go directly to Netero, and let Netero dispel this idea, not to plant the rose of the poor in my heart. On this point, as long as Netero is unwilling, V5 international executives cannot force Netero. At that time, after Netero fails in the confrontation with the Ant King and dies, he will deal with the Ant King himself, and use his natural teeth to bring this guy back to life. This way there is no delay, and Byangda doesn't have to be restrained by Zhao's Netero, and cannot go to the Dark Continent. Fischer thought carefully about the feasible plan. However, thinking of this, Fischer suddenly slapped himself on the forehead. I think too much. It's not clear how Banged was bound by Netero, and whether it is restricting this situation. When the Chimeras show up, I'll go straight to Netero and ask. If it's just that Byangda obeyed the verbal agreement with Netero, then it doesn't have to be so complicated at all. It will be fine for me to fight against the Ant King, and there is no need for this old naughty boy to die once. Fischer found that he was still thinking too responsibly. Everything is only based on his guess is right. Phew, practice and practice. If I want to defeat the Ant King, I don't know if my current cultivation level is enough. Patting his cheek, Fischer let himself stop thinking about it, then closed his eyes and started today's practice. Chapter 144. Netero, what the FK? You mean? The two of them went to the Sky Arena? Sitting on the sofa, Fischer looked at the cedar in front of him with a strange expression. Yes, Master Fischer, Master Killua and Master Gun are heading to the Sky Arena. Cedar replied respectfully. I see, you go down. Fischer nodded, and waved his hand to push the cedar away. Yes, Master Fischer. Cedar hurriedly retreated. It was a bit wrong with Fischer's speculation. Originally, Fischer thought that Killua would be able to clear the customs and return to the real world in a month. But I didn't expect it to take 2 months. And after the two came out, they didn't use Jin's card spell to go to Kate's place together, but went to the Sky Arena instead. This left Fischer a little confused. Huh? It seems there is a possibility. Did these two guys know Wing in the Sky Arena? Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in Fischer's mind, and he thought of something. That is the theatrical version that appeared in the original work, The Last Mission. It seems that in this theatrical version, the old man Netero has suffered a lot. Still, Fischer isn't sure. Immediately, Fischer directly made a phone call to Xong, who had just left not long ago, and gave him an order to collect information about whether the Olympia martial arts tournament was about to start in the Sky Arena. I remember that Netero was invited by the Sky Arena because of this grand event. Soon Xong reported. Indeed, the Sky Arena is indeed preparing for the Olympia martial arts competition recently. Even the old man Netero, the president of the Hunter Association, was invited by the Sky Arena. Hey, interesting. This is the only scene in the entire Hunter x Hunter where the old guy Netero is deflated. Speaking of which, I'm still the owner of Sky Arena. Why didn't Sky Arena invite me? Even if I'm invited, I won't participate in this kind of low-level martial arts competition. Fischer smiled maliciously and said with a smirk. Having said that, Fischer still left for the Sky Arena. After all, although Fischer was not interested in the martial arts competition, he was still very interested in the scene where Netero was deflated. It seems that in the original book, Hisoka didn't take this meeting too seriously, and he didn't enter the arena when the fighting meeting started, and just played soy sauce outside. The Sky Arena is within the territory of the Republic of Bartosha, so Fischer came here very easily. However, just after arriving here, Fischer received an invitation from the Sky Arena to participate in this battle. Ajay. However, Shell refused directly, and then went directly to Netero. Why do you have the time to come to the old man? In the Japanese room, Netero was holding a teacup and drinking tea, and said with a depressed face. He did know that Fischer spent the rest of the time squatting at home in Kukalu Mountain, except for going to Ukexin City. How would it appear here? Are you also interested in these pediatric martial arts competitions? No, no, no. How could I be interested in this kind of martial arts competition? Am I not bullying people by participating? 11. This time I'm really here to catch up with you, old man Netero. Fischer waved his hands again and denied with a smile. I always feel that your smile has malicious intentions. Netero's sense is very keen. Seeing Fischer's appearance, he immediately had a bad premonition in his heart. What on earth are you thinking? Netero asked again, with a gloomy tone. He was very sure that Fischer's intentions in coming this time were absolutely malicious, but he just couldn't figure out what it was, so the depression in his heart could be imagined. He. Fischer still looked at Netero with a smile on his face, and didn't speak, giving off a smirk feeling. This made the corners of Netero's eyes twitch, but there was nothing he could do about it. If Fischer didn't want to say, he couldn't make Fischer speak. Your brother seems to be the host, right? It's down there now, why don't you go and have a look? No way. Netero had no choice but to change the subject. Eh? Killua is the landlord. Netero's words made Fischer slightly taken aback. Why, don't you know? You're a really incompetent brother. Hearing that Fischer didn't know, Netero's eyes lit up immediately, and the old urchin broke out naturally, and grinned at Fischer and began to tease him. Fischer, you're not a good father either. Being ridiculed by Netero, Fischer naturally wouldn't allow Netero to tease him, and just turned back. As soon as these words came out, Netero was silent, and after a while he spoke. How do you know? I never revealed anything about Byanga. When he said this, Netero looked very serious. You guess it yourself. Fischer's expression recovered, and he said with a smile, with a somewhat smug tone. Netero, seeing this, Netero fell silent again, staring at the water in the teacup in a daze. A few minutes passed quickly. Fischer did not disturb Netero, and quietly sipped his tea. A few minutes passed before Tongtro responded. Also responding was Fischer. At this time, the two looked at the gate at the same time. You came here because of this matter? Looking at the gate and feeling something, Netero frowned and said helplessly to Fischer. Hey. Fischer showed his white teeth, smiled, and didn't answer. Really, I always feel that your bad taste is a bit heavy. Each to each other, Fischer said with a laugh. As soon as the voice fell, the door was opened. A short figure wearing a cloak appeared in the field of vision of the two. The man in the cloak looked up, and it was a blonde kid. The kid's pupils turned golden, and after seeing Netero, he quickly pulled out a small knife, shouted a language that Fischer knew, and then entered his belly together. The next moment, black wings appeared from the back of the kid. As soon as the wings appeared, they quickly rushed towards Netero, who had lost his mind because of the past, and instantly tied Netero's hands, hanging Netero up. It really is a complaint, Netero said with a solemn expression after being hung up. The next moment, Netero roared directly at Fischer. Cola, if you don't save the old man, why are you filming there? I saw that Fischer on the side was already holding a camera at this moment. happily taking pictures of Netero in the current situation, and it was shot from various angles, with a gloating smile on his face. Seeing this scene, Netero understood why he had that kind of depressed psychology before. Probably this guy Fischer brought it to him. Hey, don't worry, I'll let you down after I finish taking the photo. Facing Netero's roar, Fischer said with a smile, and then accelerated the speed of taking pictures, and the figure kept walking in the room. Netero, what the hell am I? Chapter 145, Solve. Jokes aside, Fischer was quick to tie up Netero's little brat and get rid of it. This guy's resentment is very special. It can seal other people's thoughts, making them unable to use them. But facing an existence of Fischer's level, it was still easily destroyed. Fischer directly dealt with this guy with a bolt of lightning, and the barrier of grievance ability was destroyed by Fischer without even sustaining it for a second. Netero slowly fell from midair. At this time, a figure also appeared at the door. Miscalculated. I didn't expect there to be existences of your level here. Netero's young friend Jed appeared at the door, looked at Fischer and Netero, and said lightly, Netero, I'll leave this guy to you, and I won't get involved. Fischer said contentedly, holding the phone. Wait, you kid, leave the camera behind. Seeing that Fischer was about to leave, Netero's first thought was this, absolutely not to let the photos of himself embarrassing go out. No, Fischer grinned, and then left here with a flash. Bastard. Killua suddenly became furious. However, no matter how annoyed, Netero's eyes shifted to Jed. Afterwards, not long after, the battle between the resentment ability 100 Ghosts Curse Resentment and 100 Styles of Avalokite's Vara broke out, and the terrifying power directly destroyed the entire floor. On the other side, Fischer has already appeared in the martial arts arena at this time. The entire Sky Arena has been controlled, and Killua is fighting on the field. The target of the battle is not the owner of the Sky Arena, but the big guy among the descendants of Sombra. As for who it is, Fischer doesn't know. He didn't read it in his previous life, and only knows the general situation. Originally, Killua couldn't win against this guy. Even if he teamed up with Gun to deal with this guy, he could only narrowly win. But now, in the ring, Killua completely suppressed this guy. Yan Lingwen didn't take out the Zanpaika Tao Killua. This thing Killua can be put into his body, so he doesn't need to carry it with him at all. At this time, Killua entered the state of super speed, and did not use the mode of Galen Thunder, but used the magic of Thunder Dragon Slayer in the state of super speed Lightning Stone Fire. The original Killua had an advantage in speed, but the attack power was not very strong. But now, with the Lightning Dragon Slayer magic, Killua's attack power has suddenly increased. Did that big guy get beaten up by Killua the whole time? He couldn't turn the tables at all. So, the scene is very interesting. The bombarder who was punched by Killua with a huge body was getting faster and faster. In the end, Killua's attack could hardly be seen, and only punch marks appeared continuously on the body of the big guy, and the blood flowed from it. The mouth continued to spew and splash. Normally, the audience in the auditorium would definitely be emotional, shouting and applauding, but now, everyone in the auditorium is silent. Because at this time around them, a large group of men in black with weapons were watching them, preventing them from making any moves, let alone applauding when they saw wonderful battles in the past. Perhaps seeing that his companion was at a disadvantage, another resentment user in the monitoring room issued an order to threaten Killua to stop. An unfamiliar voice came from the game broadcast. Stop, or these guys will be buried with you. As soon as the words came out, Killua really stopped attacking, and jumped back to distance himself from the big guy. Zura, don't meddle in my battle. As if he was very dissatisfied with his companion's meddling, the big man roared loudly, and the blood from his mouth sprayed out again. Hungry ghost, have you forgotten our purpose? Shura's voice came again from the radio, and he yelled at the big evil ghost. Hearing this, the big evil ghost immediately stopped, and looked at Killua unwillingly. Do it. Immediately afterwards, Shura's voice came again from the radio. When did you have the illusion that I would catch these strangers without a fight? At this moment, Killua spoke, looked up at the broadcasting equipment above, and sneered. The voice on the radio didn't seem to expect Killua to have such a reaction, and went silent. And the audience in the auditorium also turned pale at this time. Killua said so, it means that the former will not compromise for their lives. They will die here if they are not careful. Faced with this situation, whose face will be better? Originally, I came here to visit the martial arts competition, but in the end, I was threatened with my life. For a moment, the audience in the auditorium all had a mentality of being a dog. Zero. Ask for flowers. Killua, keep fighting. These guys have already solved it. But at this moment, a voice came from the auditorium. Brother. Hearing this voice, Killua was overjoyed and looked over. With this look, Killua realized that Fischer was sitting beside Gun at this time, and Gun was also waving at him. At the same time, Killua also found that many men in black with weapons in the auditorium had already got down on the ground at this time. Killua knows without guessing, this is his brother's masterpiece. Hurry up, let me see your recent progress. At this time, Fischer spoke again, urging Killua. Okay. Killua responded loudly with a confident look on his face. In the next moment, the lightning flashed, and Killua's figure appeared in front of the hungry ghost. The hungry ghost had no time to react, and Killua's punch landed on his abdomen. Immediately, blood gushed out from the hungry ghost's mouth. Maybe it's because they want to show off their relationship in front of Fischer. Killua's attack was even more terrifying than before. It was only 6 or 7 punches, and he directly laid down the hungry ghost who had not been defeated by dozens of punches and hundreds of punches just now. The whole person lay on the ring, coughing up blood continuously, and was completely unable to move. Hey, Killua, come up quickly, that guy is going to blow himself up later. Seeing this result, Fischer is very satisfied. Killua's strength has been greatly improved in the past 2 months, but Fischer is thinking of something. He reminded me aloud. Huh? Killua, who was expecting Fischer's praise, was slightly taken aback when he heard this, and looked over, only to see that the power on the hungry ghost had already begun to go berserk. Killua's eyes twitched, and his figure quickly flashed into the audience during the banquet. Boom. At the same time, in the monitoring room, Shura, another ability grudge man, looked at this scene with a calm expression, but his red pupils were burning with raging anger. Pat. At this time, movement suddenly appeared behind Shura. Shura turned around slowly and looked over. I saw Kurapika in a suit standing there calmly. Are you the Shura that Fischer said? Let me be your opponent. Kurapika moved her hands and said to Shura lightly. Chapter 146 Killua's decision, Kurapika's mission. Naturally, Kurapika was able to capture it easily, and Shura was quickly defeated. Not long after that, Netero also killed his good friend Jed in the past. The Sky Arena is once again in the hands of those in charge here. However, the Olympia Martial Arts Tournament stopped. No way, except for Killua and Gun and Hisoka who didn't participate. The other Flaw Masters have been knocked down, and they still don't know whether they are alive or dead. The Olympia Martial Arts Tournament was originally a battle for the Flaw Masters, and now there are no Flaw Masters. What a fart it is to hold. Didn't the two of you go to find Jin? Why did you come here to participate in the martial arts competition? Fischer asked Killua in a reception room on the floor controlled by Fischer. I received an invitation to compete in the Sky Arena just after I came out, so I came here and planned to find guns further together after the competition. Killua explained. But 660, judging from the current situation, it is estimated that the competition is impossible, so we decided to go to Jin next. Gun said in an interface. Hey, yeah, good luck to you then, Gun. Fischer nodded and congratulated upon hearing this. However, I don't know if the congratulations are true or not. Judging from the fact that Fischer knew what they would encounter next and sent congratulations, the congratulations were definitely schadenfreude. By the way, Gun, you go out first, I have something to talk to my brother alone. At this time, Killua suddenly said to Gun. Well, good. Gun didn't ask anything when he heard this, he responded directly, then got up and left the reception room. After Gun left, Killua lowered his head and didn't speak, as if he was organizing his words. Seeing this, Fischer didn't bother Killua, just waited quietly. However, Fischer could guess what the Killua guy was trying to say. Fischer noticed it from the moment he saw Killua again. The rosary needle inserted into Killua's head had disappeared. This means that Eel Fan's control over Killua is gone. Killua was already thinking about the past. Killua sent Gun away, probably to talk to Fischer about Aluka. However, after a few minutes passed, Killua still didn't speak, and kept his head down in silence. Seeing this, Fischer's cheeks twitched slightly. This guy. You want to ask about Aluka? Since Killua didn't speak, let Fischer speak. When Fischer mentioned this, Killua seemed to muster up his courage, and looked up at Fischer with sadness in his eyes. Brother, why didn't you stop Big Brother back then? Brother, with your strength at that time, you will definitely be able to stop the elder brother from inserting the needle into my head. Killua asked sadly. In Killua's view, Fischer has the ability to prevent Ilmi from controlling himself and make himself forget about Aluka, so why would he just watch Ilmi do it? There's nothing too complicated about it. At that time, I really wanted to stop it, but it was agreed by Grandpa and Dad to let Eel Fans insert the chanting needle into your head to make you forget Aluka. At that time, I was not qualified to influence their decision-making, so I could only let the Eel Fans take their actions. Fischer shook his head slightly and explained truthfully. Although my original strength has been brought up, I can only compete with Ermi, and I can't influence the decision-making of my father Silva and Grandpa Jeno. So just let it go. But now that the strength has been improved, Fischer is not prepared to take care of this matter, and he is ready to let Killua handle it by himself, and it is enough to support him behind the scenes. As it is now, Killua has eliminated the influence of Eel Fans and can already decide alone. That's right, that's right. It was indeed Dad's idea to imprison Aluka. Brother, even if you wanted to stop it, you didn't have the ability to stop it. After Fischer's explanation, he was instantly relieved and had a clear idea. How? Are you going to bring Aluka out now? I will support you. Fischer nodded, then asked. No, brother, help me take care of Aluka for the time being. As usual, I will accompany Gun to see Jin and I will come back. Then I will take a Luca to travel around the world to make up for what I owed her in the past few years. Hearing this, Killua shook her head and begged Fischer. Killua knew very well that in the Zoldyck family, apart from himself, only Fischer had this ability and could not be harmed in front of a Luca. Is that so? That's fine. Fischer nodded without saying anything. Well, so be it. Then, bro, Gun and I will go first. Killua got up and nodded, saying goodbye to Fischer. Well, let's go, Fischer said lightly. Killua also nodded in response, and then walked towards the door. Not long after Killua left, Kurapika walked in. Already arranged? Fischer said to Kurapika. Well, it's been arranged. Let Melody and the others send Nyan back. By the way, what happened? You actually asked me to call me. Kurapika walked over, sat on the sofa, slowly poured himself double the amount of black tea, and then asked as he sipped it. It might be dangerous for Killua and Gun to go to Jin this time, so prepare to follow. Fischer nodded and then ordered. Danger? The strength of the two of them has improved so much that they can be compared with the Nobunaga who I killed. There are few low-handed players. Are they actually in danger? Hearing Fischer say that Killua and Gun are in danger, Kurapika was taken aback for a moment. They will not find Jin this time when they go to Jin. They will meet Jin's apprentice, Kate. Then they will encounter a series of things, and among these things, there will be a very powerful existence. I don't expect you to be able to defeat the enemy, as long as you can protect the two of them back together with Kate. Fischer expressed his thoughts. Hey, what you said is as if you already know the future of the two of you. Fischer, don't you have an who predicts the future with Nyan, right? Hearing what Fischer said clearly, Kurapika was even more surprised. You don't need to ask about this. You call them tomorrow and ask them to tell you their location, then just go there. Fischer shook his head and said, yes, I will take good care of them and will not let them have any accidents. Kurapika did not ask again, and promised earnestly. Well, that's all I want you to do, and nothing else. By the way, Fischer, can you play a game with me? I want to see the gap between you and me. Kurapika nodded slightly, but then made such a request. Competing with me? Are you sure? Fischer was taken aback, his face full of surprise. Kurapika looked firm. Please don't show mercy. Thus, Kurapika Pighead was born. Chapter 147, Conversation with Netero. Killua is sensible, but sometimes impulsive, especially when Gun is in action. He will desperately help Gun. This is what Killua said after pulling out the pin on his head, and the best result of dealing with Neferpitou with Gun is to die together. Fischer worries that Killua, who has now pulled out his rosary, will shoot like Gun after meeting Neferpitou with Kate and others. In the original book, Gun was angry and was about to attack, but it was stopped by Killua because the chanting pin on Killua's head affected Killua, making Killua immediately think of retreating when facing a powerful enemy before knocking Gun unconscious. This time without the needle, Fischer is not sure if Killua will choose to face the enemy together like Gun with Killua's character. Although Killua and Gun have become much stronger and are quite different from the original, they are still far behind Neferpitou. Even if Neferpitou didn't learn how to fight with Gun, he already easily killed Kate, only suffering from some scratches. So Fischer sent Kurapika over. Kurapika is very strong and is at the same level as Killua and Gun. In addition, because of the restriction and oath, he has obtained a huge cultivation base of mind energy, and his strength is no less than that of O9's previous father. With Kurapika, the four of them cooperate, and they should be able to draw tie under the hands of Catwoman Neferpitou, and they can escape safely no matter how bad they are. As for why Killua and Gun were not reminded about the Chimera ants, the Chimera ant thing is very dangerous for Killua, Gun and Kurapika, but this danger is also an opportunity. You know, as Fischer's family members, the three of them all have the grace of God. The grace of God is improved by fighting the enemy. Fighting with Neferpitou, the three of them will definitely get a very huge harvest. Moreover, this time the Chimera ant incident, Fischer will also let Father Silva and Grandfather Jeno do it together. There are not many opponents of this level. Thoughts continued to diverge. Fischer came all the way to the location obtained from the service staff of the Sky Arena, which is a new Japanese room. Without knocking on the door, Fischer opened it and walked in. At this time, Netero, who was kneeling inside and sipping post-war tea, saw Fischer, and his face was covered with black lines. You dare to come here, I will delete those photos for the old man. Netero growled at Fischer. No, this was obtained with great difficulty. How could it be deleted? Fischer refused. Without thinking, many people have seen it in the original book, so Netero has no choice but to smash the jar. But now, Netero's embarrassing appearance is only his own, so how could he just delete it like this? The price of this photo is very precious when no one else sees it. Okay, delete those photos. I promise you a non-excessive condition. Seeing Fischer's refusal, Netero didn't growl again, but calmed down and said lightly, one condition? Hey, it seems pretty good, Fischer said with a smile. This is the condition of the president of the Hunter Association. It is very valuable. No, it is not exchanged for $1,000. There are really few conditions in this world to be able to obtain the conditions of Netero, the chairman of the Hunter Association. Okay, I'll delete it now. Fischer pondered for a moment, agreed. and then quickly took out the camera and deleted the photos inside. Seeing Fischer's operation, Netero nodded in satisfaction. The next moment, Netero's expression became serious. Your boy came to look for me this time because of the Dark Continent. You want to enter the Dark Continent, right? Netero looked very serious. As soon as these words came out, Fischer was stunned. How? Have I exposed anything? I didn't even mention it. Since you know about Byang's existence, this old man knows that you are going to enter the Dark Continent. Only by collecting information on the Dark Continent, will there be a very small chance of noticing Byang's existence. In the Hunter Association, the 12 earthly branches all pay attention to the Dark Continent, but few people know about it. Netero saw Fischer's doubts and explained aloud. Just because of this, you think I intend to enter the Dark Continent? Can't I find out Byang does because of other things? Fischer asked with great interest. Come on, I have blocked a lot of information about that guy, and very few people know about it. Only by looking for information from the Dark Continent can we find out his existence. Netero gave Fischer a blank look and said, since you know the existence of Byang, you must also know the plan of the Kajin Empire. Huiguaru doesn't know the heights of the sky and the earth, and cooperates with Byang to colonize the whole country into the Dark Continent. This will never succeed. Besides, with me here, Byang can't step into the Dark Continent. Netero's expression gradually calmed down, not as serious as it was at the beginning, and his tone of speech seemed to be narrating. I made a restriction oath on that guy, the route of which is my life. Only after I die can that guy enter the Dark Continent. This is my bondage to him. He also cherishes his life and will not live wire. So this time, the cooperation between Huiguaru and Byang is in vain. That guy can only rely on the strength of the Kajin Empire itself if he wants to enter the Dark Continent. Hearing this, Fischer also confirmed his guess. This guy Byang was really restricted by Netero, so he couldn't enter the Dark Continent. Only when Byang died, could he undo this shackle. In this way, 99% of the Chimera ant matter is the masterpiece of this kid. I said, old man, is there a possibility that your son is planning how to kill you, and then march into the Dark Continent with Huiguaru? Thinking of this, Fischer hesitated for a moment before reminding him. Kill the old man? It's quite possible. That kid is very obsessed with taking risks. This possibility is very high, but I don't know who else in the human kingdom can kill this old man. Did that guy invite that old monster of yours? Netero was also stunned by Fischer's reminder, and then blinked his eyes in surprise and even said expectantly, that's not true, but soon there will be creatures that can deal with you. Fischer shook his head and reminded again. Biology? There are no creatures in the human kingdom that can threaten the old man. Are they from the Dark Continent? Netero narrowed his eyes and whispered. Fischer, Zhao, Jiang is still old and hot. I just said this. How could this old boy think of this aspect? Well, there are creatures from the Dark Continent that have registered in the coastal countries, and they are very powerful creatures. Now that Netero guessed it, Fischer didn't hide it. The creature from the Dark Continent. The old man is very interested. However, according to your kid, you didn't really see the dark creature that landed. Did you know that? It's a secret. Netero, this kid is teasing the old man. He really wants to beat him. Old man, you just said you agreed to one condition, right? Chapter 148. Netero with a bad personality. Call the members. The oath made by this old guy is really a scoundrel. Back at Kukalu Mountain, Fischer cursed. This guy Netero knew the character of his son Byang for a long time, so he deliberately sent him to the Dark Continent once. However, before that, the two set a restriction that they could only go once, and once Byang came back, he could not go again. He had to wait until Netero died before he could step into the Dark Continent again. This guy bound Byang without paying any price. It is not so much a restriction oath, but rather an agreement. An agreement disguised as a restriction oath. Moreover, the character is very badly restricted. Let Byang see all kinds of Dark Continents, and after arousing his interest in adventures in the Dark Continents, he was imprisoned in the human country, unable to set foot there again. This is so proper to torture people. This is completely like giving you a piece of delicious food that makes you linger and forget to return, but then locks you up and never gives you another food. This old man's character is so bad that Fischer really can't think of anyone whose character can be compared to his. It's no wonder that Byang would plan to kill this old boy. However, scolding, Fischer didn't think too much about it, because the old man's stubborn character was used on his son, and he didn't do it to himself. However, Fischer also let this guy erase Byang's constraints, allowing this guy to go to the Dark Continent. Speaking of which, the restriction and oath made by this guy has no price at all, and if you want to erase it, you can erase it. It is completely exploiting the loopholes in the restriction and oath. Of course, Fischer did not inform Netero of the chimeric ants in detail. If Netero wiped out the queen ant before the chimeric ants developed, then the ant king would not be born. To eradicate the species of chimeric ants, it is not too late to wait for the birth of the king ant. With the passage of time, especially after acquiring Killua's talent for cultivation, Fischer felt the continuous improvement of Nyanki cultivation in his body, and he became more and more confident in dealing with the Ant King. Fischer felt that if he fought against the 3 gods and the Ant King respectively, his newly upgraded Ev 6 Grace could definitely go a step further. Even if you can't upgrade, you can definitely reach the peak of this level and let your strength skyrocket again. In this way, Fischer stayed in Kurapika Mountain, did not go out again, and paid close attention to the situation of NGL all the time. Until one day half a month later, the housekeeper Xzong called Master Fischer, Master Killua and Master Kurapika. Master Gen entered the NGL with a hunter named Kate. Hey, have they arrived yet? I see, you all withdraw, Fischer ordered lightly. Now that Killua and the others have entered the NGL, the Chimera ants should start. In the original book, Killua and the others entered NGL because Kate was commissioned to investigate the Chimera Ant Queen. Now that it's started, it's dangerous for Zoldyck's steward to stay there because the Queen of Chimera Ants has a special liking fun after eating the guy who exploded Killua, so the head of the division should try to collect and who can provide a lot of nutrition for feeding, so as to provide the Ant Queen with more. The nutrition of the Ant King makes it stronger. He doesn't care about the others. The housekeeper of the Zoldyck family can't be eaten by Chimera Ants. Yes, Sky Witch official. Subordinates retreat now. Xzong responded directly, and then hung up the phone to arrange the butler's evacuation after being respectful. When Kate and the others entered NGL, many Chimera Ant division leaders had already been born. The 3 guards will also be born at this time, and then, after the rabbit Chimera Ant was defeated and escaped by Killua and Gun, will be awakened, and many division leaders will also awaken. So many experience packs of different levels are rare, and it's time to call the dependents. Chimera Ants, Shia is completely used for military training. No, it should be said that it is used to enhance the favor of one's subordinate forces. There are different levels in Chimera Ants, powerful as the 3 gods Neferpitu, Shepf and Menthuipi. For the 3 gods, Fischer intends to let Dad, Grandpa, Menchai, Kurapika, Gale, Crook, and elder brother Ilmi to do it. As for the division commanders, these officers are going to be handed over to Killua, Gun, Michi, Paknoten, Shizuku, Art and others to solve. On the other hand, he was taking care of this military training, so as not to cause losses to the forces under his command. As for the mother and the second child, Fischer didn't think about sending them to train. After all, they were considered as auxiliary members. Killua and the others will ask Old Man Netero to help. As for the 3 guards, I will personally supervise. Fischer pondered, left the balcony, walked towards the door, and materialized the electronic glasses. Everyone, did you hear that? Fischer shouted in the chat channel he created, which can also be called a chat group. Menchai, what's wrong? Fischer, Kurapika, Fischer, we're in the NGL now. Gailu, what needs to be said here? Crook : vertical bar. Kaluto, brother Fischer, what's the matter? Silva, Fischer, what's up? Jeno, Kikyo, Fischer, what happened? Mikai. Members who own Fischer's Bluetooth headsets realized by using have all spoken in this channel. Oh, this eel fan guy didn't speak. Moreover, I forgot to gift this headset to Killua and Gun. Fischer, Menchai, take Mechi and the others to the NGL border, where we meet. Others are starting now, going to the NGL. Silva, what happened? Fischer, find you some opponents to boost your favor. As soon as these words came out, everyone had no doubts. Fischer will not deceive them, since he said he is looking for an opponent. It is definitely an opponent that is good for them. One by one, they began to prepare. Menchai in the depths of Shimel Wetland took Mechi and others and started, well done, to leave Wetmel Wetland. And Kaluto in Meteor Street also asked Wutong to arrange the itinerary, and directly boarded the airship to NGL from a city outside Meteor Street. On the side of Kukalu Mountain, Grandfather Jeno, Father Silva, Crook and Gailu temporarily put down their work and rushed over. Oh, by the way, the mother who was not nominated by Fischer also left her base that had not been established for a long time and came to Fischer. Fischer, why didn't you call Mum? Does Fischer hate Mum? His mother, Kikyo, was holding on to Fischer's collar at this moment, yelling at Fischer with a terrified expression. Fischer, what? Mum? Haven't you been researching electronic machinery recently? Why am I suddenly interested in this? After all, Fischer appeased his mother Kikyo and calmed her down. After that, I set foot on the airship to the country on the edge of NGL with my father and others. Chapter 149 Jeno and Silva entering NGL. In the dark night, outside the border of NGL, Fischer and others have already appeared here. Fischer, are the chimeric ants you mentioned really so powerful? Standing on a barren hill, Silva looked at the checkpoints and embassies built by uncles on the border below, and asked lightly. Road, awesome, the words of the head of the division are okay, but the strength of the Ant King's guard team, even if you and Grandpa join forces, they may not be opponents. That's why I said I'll find an opponent for you. Dad, you should know how much the existence of this level will help you to improve your favor. 3 guards of the Ant King, fight the 3 of them. The favor of the 2 of you can at least raise 2 levels, even Grandpa is no exception. Fischer explained lightly. That's right, that's really a good opponent. Hearing Fischer's explanation, Silva also understood, knowing the strength of the 3 guards of the Ant King that Fischer said, This made Silva a little bit ready to move and eager to try. Fischer. The old man goes in first. As soon as Silva finished speaking, Grandpa Jeno, who had been silent all this time, spoke, and then his figure flashed towards the borderline below. Fischer. Then I'll pass too. Seeing Geno's action, Silva also left a word, and then flashed out. Ah, you guys are too hearty. Mencha and the others haven't arrived yet. 497 looked at the fire, not at all like the killer's grandfather and father, Fischer said blankly. Speaking of which, although the Zoldyck family is wearing the skin of an assassination family, the assassination method is sometimes more warrior than warrior. What should we do next? Crook came to Fischer's side, and asked Fischer where Silva was standing before. Wait first, wait for Menchai to come over, then the three of you will go in together. Fischer replied. Okay, but, Fischer, are the Ant King's guards really as powerful as you say? Looking at you, you attach great importance to their attitude. Crook nodded, responded, and then asked curiously. Let me tell you, that old guy from Netero didn't know if he could kill one of the guards. The Nyanki of those guys is much stronger than the current Netero. When Netero was young, he could compete with him in Nyanki cultivation. Fischer pondered for a moment, then explained. As soon as these words came out, both Gailu and Crook were taken aback, and then they both took a breath. They all know that although Netero never fought with Netero when he was young, but now Netero beats them like he beats his grandson, and it's actually not as good as him. You want us to fight against this level? Crook said with a strange expression. His tone seemed to contain shock. Isn't this letting them go to be beaten? Gailu also looked at Fischer with the same gaze. Do you think that everyone has a time-related n like Bshigwani and like old man Netero? The three guards are just normal n. Even if you can't beat them, you won't be beaten like grandchildren when you fight Netero. Oh, yes, I almost forgot about this. The old man's 100 forms of Avalokite's Vara is special. After being reminded by Fischer, the two also came to their senses, and then said, as the 12 earthly branches, they are treated like grandchildren only in the face of the bug of Netero, and against other people, even if they lose. They will not lose face so embarrassingly. Mainly because I was shocked by what Fischer said just now, so I forgot about it. Besides, I didn't tell you to go up one by one. For those guys, wait for the two of you to team up with Mencha and Kurapika and deal with one. Dad and Grandpa deal with each other in teams of 2. Enough. Don't forget that you have more than now, Fischer said flatly. Speaking of which, isn't Kurapika already in the NGO? I'll ask what's going on inside. As soon as Kurapika was mentioned, Crook thought that Kurapika seemed to be inside right now, so he wanted to ask about the situation inside Kurapika. Don't ask, Kurapika is probably in a ajab fight now. Fischer interrupted Crook's plan to find Kurapika in the chat channel. According to the time estimate, the current Kurapika and Killua are estimated to have met Neferpitu, and they should be in the battle, so there will be no time to respond. What did you send Kurapika into the NGL for? Gailu, who hadn't said a word, asked. Protect Killua and Gun both. Now we should have played against Neferpitu, one of the three guards. Fischer said truthfully. Is there someone from Kurapika? Crook asked with some concern. Don't worry, there is still Kate with good strength. Even if she can't match, it is estimated that retreating will be fine, Fischer said with a light smile. Every user of God's grace Fischer is able to sense their condition. Fischer could feel that although Kurapika, Killua and Gonzora fluctuated greatly, their lives were not in danger. The three of them should just be fighting hard now. That's why Fischer is so calm. With this kind of perception ability, Fischer is also worried about the safety of Killua and Gun, mainly because the backfighter is too powerful. Fischer was afraid that the two of them would be killed by Neferpitu before he could use magic to teleport them, so he asked Kurapika to follow them to have a look. Even if you say that, it's even scarier than President Netero. Kurapika is adding Kate, and I'm confused. Do you want to go in now? Kate, Crook, knows. He is the disciple of that nasty guy named Jin, but his strength is very good. In terms of strength, there is no difference between Kate and the 12 earthly branches. It is just that the contribution is not enough, but Crook is still worried. What's the hurry? Dad and Grandpa are gone. Look, Grandpa probably already sensed the battle in NGL. Even the Dragon Star group has been sent out. Fischer pointed to the dragon rising into the sky in NGL and said. When the two heard the words, they quickly looked over. Inside the NGL, there is a golden streak in the sky at this time, and that huge and slender Neon beast is flying towards the depths of the NGL. Hey, does Mr. Jeno still have such a powerful n? I remember that Mr. Jeno is a conjurer. It's really amazing to be able to cultivate a transmuter to such an extent. Crook exclaimed as he looked at the distant Dragon Star group. Who knows what Grandpa thinks? Conjurer doesn't cultivate well, but he cultivates transmuter, and he has cultivated to this point. Fischer shrugged, also very speechless. Maybe it's because Mr. Genuo likes transmuter? Gailu was a little uncertain and explained on behalf of Grandpa Genuo. Fischer, I thank you for Grandpa. Gale. Yo-hoo, here we come. Chapter 150 Arrival. At the same time, in the depths of NGL, Kurapika and others have completely fallen into a hard fight. The battle is in full swing, with Kurapika and Kate taking the lead, Killua and Gun as the assistants. At this time, the four of them were completely suppressed and beaten by Neferpitou alone, and there were many dangers everywhere. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives. However, the only fortunate thing is that Kate didn't lose her arm, so that her combat power can be maintained. Before coming here, Kurapika already knew from Fischer that this trip was a journey full of dangers, so he never let go of his vigilance. The moment the Catwoman Neferpitou rushed over, Kurapika noticed it and stopped Neferpitou. Although one of her hands was lost due to this, fortunately, she was not removed like Kate in the original book. Between Kate, Killua and Gun under the cover of the human, he used the healing ability to heal his arm, and then joined the battle group. However, even if the four joined forces, they were still suppressed by Neferpitou, and they could barely maintain the battle situation. Fischer, that's too simple. I didn't know that the danger here is so terrifying. Kurapika's forehead was covered with cold sweat during the battle, and his expression was calm, but his red eyes were full of anxiety. He doesn't even have time to contact now. The battle is too fierce. It is impossible to give him a chance. Even Fire Red Eye, a life-consuming ability, has been activated since the beginning of the battle. Even though Nchi is strong, none of his manipulator cannot achieve much in this battle. He must use the Nchi of Enhancer to fight. Kurapika's contribution is the highest, which also makes him occupy a very important position in this battle. Once he withdraws from the battle to contact Fischer and loses Kurapika's power, one of the people present will definitely be the first by Neferpitou. It was hit hard for a while. He and Kate maintained the whole battle situation. Although Killua and Gun were already strong, they were still too weak to face Neferpitou. It means that the physique of the two is strong enough to keep up with their current fighting situation. You two, your strength is so strong. After fighting for so long, I can't take you down. The ferocious claws tore through the air and the Nianchi defense. Neferpitou had an excited smile on his face, and he was helpless. Talking. Neferpitou has a lively personality, with cat's curiosity, weak resistance to novelty, and is easily attracted. The current Kurapika and others are very novel things for her. In her cognition, she should be able to take down these people very quickly. After all, one's own strength is very strong. However, these few people cooperated so well, and I actually failed to win a few of them after entering for more than an hour. Not even a chance to hit them hard. As for Killua and Gun, Neferpitou still doesn't pay attention to them. She only has Kate and Kurapika in her eyes now. The main force fighting him is Kurapika and Kate. I'm so lucky. If Kurapika didn't block the attack just now, I would have lost my arm. Without the arm, my strength will definitely be greatly weakened. With the strength of Killua and Gun, I can't compete with this monster. Kurapika and 10 people cannot support it. However, this is only a temporary luck. What should we do next? This kind of high-intensity battle, I am already a little tired now, and I can't support it for a long time, and I can only support it for 2 hours at most. The same goes for Kurapika. Killua and Gun are physically stronger and can last longer. However, their strength is not enough. Without Kurapika and I, with their strength, they will be taken down soon and the entire army will be wiped out. It's a terrible situation. I've got a ring around my hand. It's too reckless. I should wait for the association's help to arrive. The smooth sailing for so many years has made me lose my vigilance, has it made me arrogant? At this time, Kate was extremely remorseful and self-reflected. If he hadn't proposed to conduct an in-depth NGL investigation, this kind of thing would not have happened. However, it was just a few words of self-criticism, and I didn't dare to think too much and put all my energy into the battle. This kind of high-intensity battle cannot allow him to be distracted for too long, because if it is too long, he will really be distracted, and then there will be flaws. Kurapika, can I contact my brother? Let my brother come here. Killua, who had keen senses, also noticed their current situation, and shouted at Kurapika during the battle. Seeking flowers. When he came here, he already knew about the existence of Bluetooth headsets from Kurapika, and complained to Fischer for this, saying that Fischer favored one over another, and did not give him and Gun such good things for communication. Now I need this thing to ask for help. No, I need to use Nianchi to contact Fischer. In this situation, I can't draw Nianchi out of the battle at all. Kurapika shook his head and denied it. The Bluetooth headset Fischer gave was a product of N, and it naturally required Nchi to use it, but it was impossible for him to distract Nchi from the battle in such a high-intensity battle, and it would leave a loophole. Damn, this is troublesome. Hearing this, Killua gritted his teeth and cursed secretly. Hey, it seems that you can still ask for help, UCF. Do you need me to give you time to ask for help? Neferpitou naturally heard the conversation between the two. His expression became more excited, and he asked them aloud, huh? However, as soon as the words fell, Neferpitou suddenly stopped the rhythm of the battle and stopped in place. Kurapika and the others were also taken aback, stopped the high-intensity fighting rhythm, and looked at Neferpitou vigilantly. However, Neferpitou didn't care about their vigilance at all, but looked up at the sky. This made the 4 people present frown, but Kurapika and others did not dare to look up at the sky like Neferpitou. Who knows if Neferpitou looking up at the sky is some kind of trap, and whether he will be attacked by Neferpitou when he is waiting for others to look over. However, The other three didn't dare to make any moves, but Killua, like Neferpitu, suddenly raised his head and looked towards the sky. Dragon stars! Killua couldn't help shouting after seeing the figure appearing in the sky. Afterwards, an excited expression appeared on Killua's face. Saved. But just as Killua finished speaking, Neferpitu squatted down, and then his thighs suddenly swelled. In the next moment, Neferpitu shot into the sky like a cannonball. Now, the three of Kurapika also looked up at the sky. Then, Kurapika and others saw the golden dragon. I saw three figures colliding together. Boom. Grandpa, Dad! Killua shouted excitedly. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.